Welcome in. We are back. Unfortunately, on the day of Rashee Rice's funeral. Wide receiver one for about 4 games to start the season. Now, unfortunately, probably the wide receiver one of the injured reserve. Most likely. We have not gotten official news that he is torched for the season. He was on the thumbnail of this. We could probably go right into the major injuries that happened because this was the big one. One of the top 8 receivers rest of season goes down for what appears to be a season-ending ACL tear, probable multi-ligament damage because it was a contact injury.
Sorry, I got to get this out of the way. Literally, one of my points was my Flock League team, and I'll get into the whole team in a second because, yes, I am going to be suffering my first loss this week after starting 3-0. I mean, one of my major pieces was Rashee St. Motherfucking Rice, that god himself, and just seeing the nature happen. If it was a football play, go ahead, fine, whatever. Mahomes, you're the face of the fucking NFL. You threw a fucking interception. Why are we dolphin diving into your wide receiver one's knee? What are we doing? Like, seriously, even if Rashee Rice wasn't there, why are you diving to make that type of tackle? You're the face of the fucking NFL. You're not some fucking spot start quarterback that has to stay into the lineup. No, your job is safe regardless of if you go for that tackle or not. Doesn't matter if that gets returned for a touchdown. It doesn't matter if fucking anything else other than you trying to make a tackle happens on that play. Why are you going for that? Like, seriously, the worst form I've ever seen, by the way, diving head with your shoulder angled like that. Doesn't even matter that you hit Rashee Rice. That was a bonehead fucking dive to begin with. But the fact that you also take out your wide receiver one's knee, and I mean, we can talk about it right now. Without Rashee Rice, are the Chiefs a tier 1 NFL contender?
No, they're still, I mean, if they get to the playoffs, they still have Mahomes. So the dance is all they need to do to get there. Hopefully Rashee Rice, I mean, again, it hasn't been officially confirmed yet, so it is possible he has a bone bruise or something like that, but it is more than likely he is out for the year, and his dynasty value is going to be in flux too, because we also have the worry that he'll be suspended, and if he's on PUP, I'm not sure the actual logistics of this, but if he physically is unable to perform coming off of an ACL tear, I don't believe suspension games would count towards that. Like, I think he would be suspended beyond what games he could actually get back and pass a physical for. So again, that could be a crazy next year discussion, but just real quick dynasty value on Rashee Rice. He was a top 10 dynasty receiver for sure before.
He was arguably the wide receiver 8. Yeah. He was
now, where is he now?
I mean, if we're going through it, I will be updating, by the way, my rest of the season and my dynasty rankings today. So if you guys are wondering over on the site, it will be updated for you guys as well. In terms of just gauging his dynasty value, again, I moved him up to wide receiver 8 coming into the week. With the news now that he more than likely, again, I would say at this point, it's probably 95+% likelihood it is a torn ACL. If it wasn't, I don't think Andy Reid would have gone out there and said, we're expecting the worst. That's pretty much what he said after the game in terms of a presser. I mean, Rashee Rice or his team and Xavier Worthy?
I would rather have Rice still. It would also depend too, because I think the way that you would buy Rashee Rice, or the reason you'd be going after him, is if you had like a rebuilding roster where you can afford to just eat a full year of no production. I do actually think he's a half decent buy in formats like if you have a team set up in that way.
See, the issue that I have with him again, and I would actually disagree because I would have him lower than that. Than Xavier Worthy at this point. Because if you're telling me the cost is any type of first round pick, if you're a rebuilder, first, you're not giving up a first rounder. Second of all, if you're a contender, you're not giving up a first rounder because Rashee Rice is going to be missing probably the next year and a half, maybe even 2 years at minimum. It's to the point where it's nearly a 2026 play. And I just think
I don't think so.
Why not?
I think he'll be back on the field midseason next year. Like, if
he could get suspended too.
More than 6 to 8 games, in my opinion.
And what if he's on the pup for 6 games?
Well, if he's able to pass a physical, and timelines suggest that he should, by a year from now or by 10 months from now, he should be able to pass a physical and not be on the pup to start the season. Then he gets those 6 to 8 games to rest and recoup and that kind of thing. And then by week 6, week 8, he's back on the field. And then where are we talking about his dynasty value at that point?
Yeah, and then on top of that, too, you have to also consider that it would be a receiver coming first year off the ACL, too, which tends not to be the most.
That's fair, but he would also have very ample time to get back on the field because we expect the suspension to take place.
I just think the thesis for him is you're not going to see wide receiver 1 level production until 2026. So we have to adjust him in terms of the valuation. I don't think we can pay a first on this current market, knowing that there's just simply producers that you can get for the next 2 years for that cost.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think like a late first is probably the absolute most I'd be willing to pay. It'd probably be more like an early second, given what I think the market value reaction would be on Rashee Rice. But it's an interesting discussion because I do think there's teams that I have personally that would be well set up to endure a guy like Rashee Rice. And one of them, like I have a team with like extremely young players, 4, 5, 2025 first, ready to influx a bunch of young running backs. And I would be fine parting with an early second, like my second, for example, this year.
I think Bandy makes a good point too. We're also having to discuss that even by the time he comes back, he's going to be a 26-year-old receiver off a torn ACL. Like, what's his value on the market actually going to be?
Okay, well, so if you view it that way, then he should have never been wide receiver 8.
Why?
Because, well, I mean, the ACL changes things.
The ACL changes massive things.
He was a top 26 is prime receiver. I don't give a shit what his age is.
Again, like I'm saying, it's a counterpoint for the market value because there's a big difference when he's 24 now, giving you 21, 22 PPR points per game like he was versus, I mean, I don't think we can expect 20 plus PPR points per game at least until 2026. I'm standing firm on that.
Yeah, again, I think he could be a wide receiver 2 as soon as midseason next year. If he gets a 6 to 8 game suspension, he comes back week 9, week 10, and he's producing, wide receiver 2 numbers. I think we're talking about a guy that's right back up to a top 15 to 20 dynasty receiver, no problem.
I mean, offers in your inbox right now, Jayden Reed for him. You're taking that, right?
I would take Jayden Reed. Yeah, but that's more of a Jayden Reed bull case than it is a Rashee Rice bear case.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's honestly, it's just sickening. Honestly, like that's the best way I can describe it.
For sure. Yeah. We went a while on Rashee Rice here. We did have a lot of other injuries that happened. Speaking of Jayden Reed, actually, Christian Watson, high ankle sprain, could go to IR. There's reports that he should be out 3 to 4 weeks, and there's a chance he could go to IR from that. We will talk about Dontavian Wicks when we get into the waiver ad section of this. Christian Watson, unfortunately, dealing with another injury, a guy that's not been able to stay healthy to this point in his career. I would imagine a lot of the market is going to give up on him pretty quickly in dynasty leagues, especially in redraft leagues. I would say he's probably droppable if he doesn't go to the IR. If he does, you could throw him into your IR spot or whatever. But this seems like a Wally Pipp situation where Christian Watson, goes down. It's been like a rotation at receiver with these 4 guys. But I do believe that Dontavian Wicks will take this job by the balls and never give it back, personally.
Wicks is just a better receiver than Christian Watson. I think it's pretty simple. And I don't think, like you said, he's going to cede those snaps back. Dontavian Wicks, in snaps that he plays on the field with Jayden Reed and with Romeo Doubs, has actually been the most productive in terms of targets per route run, yards per route run of those guys. So if he's going to be a consistent player moving forward, again, I would still prefer Reed rest of the season because of what he's able to do after the catch, the explosive plays downfield. Like, I still think Reed, to me, is the wide receiver 1 in terms of the ceiling he can bring you on a week-to-week basis. But if Wicks is going to be a consistent target share player on this team and get the snaps, I mean, I think, first of all, he's the clear wide receiver 2 in this team. I know Romeo Doubs is a fine receiver, but Dontavian Wicks, the ceiling is just massive in terms of fantasy. I think you got to start considering him as potentially a top 24 to 30 weekly play now.
Yeah, at least as long as Watson is out and we know that he's going to run 80% of the routes or whatever. Like, I think I'm going to have, like, for example, in our flock league, I have Shakir and Tank Dell as my 4th, 5th, and then Dontavian Wicks was my 6th receiver. Dontavian Wicks will be in my flex spot most likely over Khalil Shakir and Tank Dell, assuming he's back from his injury. Like, I have Ayuk and Wilson and some other guys ahead of him on the depth chart, but man, Dontavian Wicks has a real opportunity here to take this job and never give it back, because the issue for Wicks was always route participation. That was always the thesis of why we were a little bit lower. Like, we loved him as like a sleeper candidate, but the reason that he was
best
dropped
ball,
so frequently, the reason that everyone was dropping him as soon as like week 2, week 3, when he had that situation. Also, Jordan Love being out didn't help that situation as well. So Jordan Love back on the field looking as good as he looked in the second half of that game. And then also Christian Watson going out with this injury subsequently is great news for Dontavian Wicks. So Watson, he is probably going to go to IR based on most of the reports. One other guy, another big time name that went down with an injury with the same injury, which is a high ankle sprain, was Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, thankfully, and I heard a lot of doctors talking about this. Dr. Jesse Morris over at Injury Experts broke this down. He had tightrope surgery on this exact same ankle in
2022.
2022 at the end of the 2022 season. Now that sounds bad, right? You might be thinking, oh God, he's injured the same ankle that he injured before. Well, what tightrope surgery actually does from a medical standpoint, this is me quoting him. I do not know shit about tightrope surgery. It's you're less prone to severely pull your high ankle on a high ankle sprain. Like, for example, last year, Kyron Williams had a high ankle sprain. He only missed, I believe it was 2 or 3 games as a result, and he probably should have missed 5 or 6 based on the severity of that injury. But because he had tightrope surgery, it limited the severity of that high ankle sprain. So Dr. Morris projects that Jonathan Taylor will miss probably 1, maybe 2 games if he gets lucky. If it gets announced that he's going to IR or something, that would obviously change things. It means it's more severe of an injury. But he tended to think that, the Trey Sermon thesis, of course, we're going to talk about him on waivers as well. It's probably a 1 to 2 week play, give or take. And for those of you guys that have Jonathan Taylor, including myself, I have him in 2 leagues, or I had him in 2 leagues. I traded him last week, but I have him in 1 more league still. That's good news for us.
How did, by the way, how did both the players, the main pieces in those trades, both go down with short-term injuries? Because obviously Malik Neighbors did suffer the concussion at the end of the Cowboys game as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation there. So JT, again, I would say breathe a sigh of relief if you guys were a Jonathan Taylor manager. It hasn't been officially announced like anything in particular, but he's probably going to miss a game, if not potentially 2.
Can I add 2, or actually 3 injuries? Because I mean, first of all, the Malik Neighbors one, we didn't really talk about the guys on Thursday. The Malik Neighbors one obviously going to be big. And for those of you guys that maybe have some players that have the Cowboys on their schedule going forward, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are going to miss significant time. DeMarcus Lawrence is probably going to miss the next 1 to 2 months with a Lisfranc injury, and Micah Parsons is also dealing with a high ankle sprain. So
might miss a month too.
The Cowboys are going to be in some high scoring game scripts moving forward. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So Neighbors, like you mentioned, probably in danger of missing week 5. It's again, he was playing Thursday night, so it's possible he clears the protocol in time, but definitely didn't look like a great play, and there's a chance he misses the game. Chris Olave, it appeared re-aggravated his hamstring injury, but I don't think he officially left the game and never returned. I think he was kind of just in and out of the lineup, hobbled, kind of re-aggravated a little bit. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if Chris Olave misses week 5 as a result of this, because he probably should not have missed week 4, to be honest, or he should have missed week 4. Chris Olave, he played kind of right through the injury.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about that risk. Obviously, he still had a fine day if you put him in your lineup, but we talked about that risk, man. The hamstring injury is no joke. It did happen on the Friday, and in fact, Deepak actually said he would have advised Chris Olave to sit out in week 4. So if he did re-aggravate that injury, I mean, I would have just rathered him sit out on week 4 if this was going to be an issue for him.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it would have been way better for Chris Olave's long-term value if you had Chris Olave to just not play in week 4 and not worry about the fact that he may have re-aggravated the injury. So number of minor injuries that took place, and then we can kind of get on to some of the takeaways here. George Kittle had a rib injury on literally mossed 3 players and scored a touchdown on the play. Did return, so probably not a huge concern there. He did come into the game after missing week 3's game with a hamstring injury, so he's a little banged up right now, but I would still say he's one of the few elite tight ends that are actually performing. Khalil Shakir tweaked his ankle, did return. Anthony Richardson suffered a hip pointer injury, which is a very painful injury according to Dr. Morris, but it's probably not something that's going to cause him to miss significant time. Maybe back after 1 game absence, maybe he tries to play through it. Whatever the case is, he has a really easy matchup this week against the Jacksonville Jags, so hopefully for Anthony Richardson managers like myself in my home league, he plays through this injury.
Yeah, same with me. With the matchup with the Jags, by the way, we may or may not mention Nico Collins a couple times later on, but let's just say the Jaguars defense cannot guard anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we victory lap Nico Collins every week. We probably don't need
to. Yeah, no need to spend too long on it, but also, I mean, the guy's a freaking nature. I saw Crackshot mention him in the comments, so I had
speaking of the Jags, Travis Etienne was dealing with a shoulder injury during the game, was in and out of the lineup. Tank Bigsby looked good. Dr. Morris thinks it's a mild AC sprain. He did return to the game. It's probably not going to be anything significant, but worth noting because his snap share, we'll talk about this right in as soon as we're done talking about injuries. There was a number of running backs that had a dip in their snap shares that we kind of need to judge the panic meter on, and ETN is one of them. Taysom Hill, Tyler Beatty, CPAT all left the game with injuries, abdomen, back, and ankle, respectively. Not overly fantasy relevant players, but they do affect
80s was guys. Pretty scary. I'm not sure if you saw what happened.
Yeah, it was, and that helps Javonte. He had his best game of the season. If Beatty's going to miss significant time, CPAT dealing with an ankle injury. Najee's going to be a huge workhorse, but he was terrible against the Colts. So inefficient. Jalen Warren is out. probably
You
yet
have
another game for the most part.
You also listed Taysom Hill here. That is a big deal if you are an Alvin Kamara manager
Yeah.
because we saw early in the game he
sniped him
sniped
twice.
two times, sniped him 2 times. So if Taysom Hill is dealing with that abdomen injury and maybe missing next week, I believe they played the Chiefs.
Yeah, something like that. It's a big game, and we play them in week 6. I'm pretty sure. So, the Buccaneers.
Yeah. So the last time you played them, it worked out pretty well, eh?
Yeah.
Was that the Super Bowl last time you played them?
Who? The Chiefs? No. We played the New Orleans in week 6.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad. I thought you were talking.
I think we play Kansas City in week 7, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But we do play.
Is the last time you played them in the Super Bowl? Or have you played them since?
I can't remember. I think we may have played them we definitely played them in 2021 or 2022.
I know that year in the Super Bowl year, you played them in the regular season. So
yeah, and Tyreek had like 200 yards in the first quarter or whatever.
Yeah, are we back to this would be the first time then you've played them since the Super Bowl.
I'm pretty sure we played them in 2021.
Oh, unless it was like the random filler game because there's a 17th game now because they get one random game.
Yeah, I don't remember. I honestly don't.
Pete's right. I do remember actually now.
Yeah,
you played them
anyway,
Let's
get into some of the biggest takeaways. Like I said, the running back panic meter is something that people in the chat right now are sounding the alarm on. A lot of people are talking about Breece Hall specifically because Breece Hall, 75% of the carries in weeks 1 and 2. He was really good, had big performances. In back-to-back weeks now, he has only commanded 53% of the team's carries. Braylon Allen looks very good. The offensive line, for whatever reason, doesn't want to block when Breece Hall's out there, but blocks their ass off when Braylon Allen's out there. I don't know if it's a vision thing. I don't know if it's a getting what's there thing or a scheme thing or the types of runs they're calling for him thing. I, for one, as a Breece Hall manager in my home league, I know you have him in our flock league. Are you worried about Breece Hall? What's your level of panic on Breece Hall?
Level of panic is more so on the offense rather than Breece himself, to be honest. So Coach Speak Index, I believe, put this out, but there was actually a media call or the media.
Yeah, Saleh called him a workhorse
called him a workhorse, called him the fact that they still want to run their offense through him. Denver honestly just played a good game plan. It is concerning that Braylon has just been evidently more efficient so far this year. So that is something to monitor, but we also got to think of it like this. Breece Hall still is very good in terms of pass protection, and he's their second best receiver on this team. There's no way he's just going to be isolated out of the offense. So again, could he lose maybe instead of a 75, 80% carry workload, that goes down to 60, 65%? Sure. Like Braylon Allen's probably going to command some more carries out of the backfield. But at the same time, despite losing snaps to Braylon Allen, in a game that was a 10-9 slugfest where no offense was really doing much either way, he had 15 touches or 15 opportunities in this game. So it's like, if that's the worst range of outcome, where in a 10-9 loss to the fucking Denver Broncos, he gets 15 opportunities. Like we've seen even last week, he got the opportunities last week anyway. So he can lose snaps, but also too worth noting, the Jets, again, I can't clarify this. I'm sure somebody could actually look at the formation percentage, but they're the number one team in terms of pony personnel from what I've watched. Every time I watch a Jets game, it almost feels like every series, at least 3 to 5 snaps, both Braylon Allen and Breece Hall are on the field together. So if Braylon Allen's going to get more snaps, I honestly think it's going to come with Breece Hall still on the field because we've seen them do it.
Yeah, which is like an off-season trope that we always hear. Like everybody,
they've actually done it.
Play our 2 running back sets, but like the Jets are actually doing it, like you said, and also too, like this Denver defense, a top 3 unit in the league this year. Like they're erasing. Phenomenal. They erased Garrett Wilson out of the game plan. Like, and Surtain is like first team All-Pro corner. He's the best corner in the league.
Yeah, I don't think it's even particularly close at this point. I mean, I was always on the Surtain trade. I know, obviously, like kudos to Sauce Gardner. He's had a great start to his NFL career. But the people that were saying, "Oh yeah, Sauce is a tier above Surtain," I'm like, are we watching the same guys play? Like Surtain to me is still always been the best corner in the NFL since he got drafted.
Yeah, well, can you name a defensive down lineman that's like a difference maker on the Broncos?
Zach Allen right now, no?
Yeah, okay, but like there's no Quinnen Williams on that team to help that. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Jets have a better front, so that helps. And also DJ Reed is much better than the corner playing opposite Patrick Surtain as well. Like he is driving that defense, Surtain.
I'm pretty sure Zach Allen is like top 3 in the NFL in interior pressures right now. Like he's just having a complete breakout year for that team. I'll try to find it, but like, dude, I can't believe how, like, I know he was like a high 2nd round pick and there was these expectations when I believe he got drafted by the Cardinals, but like Zach Allen's been fucking.
He was a 3rd round pick. I think he was supposed to go around top 50, but Anyways, this is an interesting question. I just want to bring this up because Christian says, but being a top 3 pick this bad is awful. You're talking about Breece Hall. Dude, Breece Hall was RB5 in points per game with over 20 PPR points per game entering this game. So I'm not letting one game skew me off of Breece Hall saying he's been awful this year. He has not been awful. He has 2 games of like 18 PPR points and 1 game of like 25 PPR points. Like he's been totally fine up until this game.
By the way, Zach Allen, 23 pressures in 4 games as an interior defensive lineman.
It's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. The other one, and Zachary makes reference to it right here, is Bijan Robinson. A lot of people sounding the panic button on Bijan Robinson.
Algier looks good.
Algier looks good, and Algier has always been good. So, I mean, that should not surprise us. I mean, the big takeaway here is Braylon Allen and Tyler Algier are the best 2 handcuffs in fantasy. I don't even think it's close, to be honest. I mean, Charbonnet was really good when Walker was out too, but those 2 guys are going to be absolute studs if anything happens to the starter in front of them. Bijan Robinson had an 82% snap share through 3 games entering week 4 and had a 61% snap share in week 4. Now he had a big touchdown called back. It was a long, 20-yard reception or whatever. Looked really good. Am I worried about Bijan? A little bit. Like, would I rather have Saquon than Bijan rest of the season? Yes.
That's going to be the adjustment.
Depending what happens tonight, would I rather have Devon Achane than Bijan rest of season? Potentially. Gibbs rest of season? Probably not. I would say I'd still rather have Bijan, but am I worried about Bijan?
The only way
I'm still buying him.
The only way you could put Gibbs over him is if Montgomery were to go down again. Knock on wood, I'm not praying on injury, but like at the same time, that would be the case for him, to be honest. And Devon Achane, he needs to. I would
rather have Bijan as a top 5 running back. Like I'm not gonna overreact here and be like, I'd rather have Derrick Henry than Bijan rest of season. Like Derrick Henry, we'll talk about in a second. He looks great, but I would still rather have Bijan in PPR formats.
How many players in fantasy right now you actually feel confident in a week-to-week basis?
No, like none. I feel like every fantasy team I have is a team of buy low candidates.
Like it's remarkable, honestly. And I mean, the other one we have listed here, Travis Etienne, like you said, did see his split go down a ton. We mentioned.
What's your panic meter on Etienne if you have him?
I was way more panicked than you coming into the week, for the record, because I'm terrified of this Jaguars offense. I think it looks horrific. Bigsby looks better than him.
Good. That's the thing that irritates me about the Jags is that like Christian Kirk had a good game. Brian Thomas looked great. We'll talk about him in a second too. Like
for the record, by the way,
the one game just looks bad.
If Trevor Lawrence was any more accurate, I think Brian Thomas would be. I know Dynasty Superflex shout out on Twitter. He tweeted this a couple times. Brian Thomas is a little bit more Trevor Lawrence accuracy away from being valued 2+ first round picks on the Dynasty market right now. He'd be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy if Trevor Lawrence just connected on him a couple more times. And I mean, I mentioned last week that Caleb missed Rome Odunze wide open down the field. I feel like that's been a common week-to-week nature of Trevor Lawrence missing Brian Thomas down the field.
Yeah, no,
the guy's unbelievable.
Too, even week 1 with Richardson and AD Mitchell too. Like these rookie wide receivers can't connect for these long plays sometimes. But Etienne, I'd be like, I would be willing to send offers for him if people are going to value him as like a mid RB2 in fantasy rest of the season. I think that's where people are going to be at with him, and I think I'd be willing to buy him at that price tag.
Yeah, at that price, there's like not a lot of opportunity cost, to be honest. Like you're still getting
like. Let me ask you this: would you rather have Brian Robinson or Travis Etienne? I think this is about where he should be valued, give or take.
Honest to God, dude.
I'd rather have B-Rob for what it's worth.
I would rather have B-Rob, and the reason why, again, like this could be a point we get to in a second, but I do expect the Commanders' offense to fall back down to earth because they have faced some pretty big punching bags in the first few weeks of defenses
that they played.
Yeah, like people, for the record again, give Jayden Daniels his flowers. He looks phenomenal. Obviously, he's a guy that would probably be a first-round startup pick if we had to redo startup drafts today. But at the same time, it's like, I've seen people say he's like the quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 in Dynasty. And I'm like, okay, can we settle down? Like he played the Arizona Cardinals, the New York Giants, and who was the third opponent that they played?
The
last week, Bengals.
Yeah, we killed Jayden Daniels. It was his first NFL game, obviously, but we clamped him down pretty much. He just ran. He had to run for his life against us.
Again, I don't mean this to sound like I'm a hater on Daniels. I just want to see more of a sample because like people are already willing to anoint him as like a superstar, and I just think that's crazy.
One thing that I would absolutely say is unequivocally we have to pivot on is I would take Jayden Daniels over Drake Maye. As much as we haven't seen Drake Maye right now, I think that you cannot take Drake Maye over Jayden Daniels at this point.
As an asset, I don't disagree, but at the same time, it's not like I'm saying like for fantasy, obviously you take Daniels. I think real life we're going to see Drake Maye.
Yeah, I mean we'll see what happens, but like I think one of the adjustments we have to make is that like Jayden Daniels is a first
fantasy
pick. He's a
absolutely. I'm not debating that. No.
And
I'm not debating that.
We have to have the conversation. If we redrafted today, does he go 101? he's got to, right? He's got to go over Caleb, in my opinion.
I mean,
I think he has to. I think it's total take lock if he does not.
I mean,
I get what
we
you mean.
revisit
Like,
this in week 6.
More of a sample size and thing.
Can we revisit this in week 6?
We can, but I think if you were doing a dynasty startup right now,
it's too soon for me. Like I know what I watched in Caleb Williams, and I know that he's in an unideal situation right now. Sure, it may sound like take lock, and if you want to go on the market, I'm sure Jayden Daniels is going to crush both these guys by a ton. But at the same time, it's not like I'm adding on if I have Drake Maye or Caleb Williams to get Jayden Daniels right now, because I believe in both those guys. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I still believe in them as well, but I think for sure.
I don't disagree. Daniels, the market value, you have to go with
as
Daniels.
Of right now, Jayden Daniels, if I had to pick one of these rookies to start 101, I would pick Jayden Daniels personally. Yeah. And actually, you could make the argument that the other receivers are probably close to Jayden Daniels as well, like with Neighbors and Harrison and those type of guys. But I think if I was redrafting Dynasty Rookie Superflex drafts right now, it'd have to be Jayden Daniels 101.
And Cameron, this is very fair, but also I think with what we've learned from A-Rich, we can take that into Jayden Daniels.
We also didn't have a choice for what it's worth with A-Rich because he got hurt. Yeah. We didn't want to have only a 3-game sample size. We had no choice. And we also if
Jayden Daniels, again, knock on wood, hopefully he stays healthy. If Jayden Daniels had the same type of A-Rich thing where he was explosive in 3 games and then missed he's going to be valued like that because that's the only sample we've seen of him. I just want to wait and see what happens in the next few weeks once we see some competitive defenses. I'm not here to trash talk Jayden Daniels. He looks fucking phenomenal. I'm not here to say that. But I want to see him against some fucking good defense because it's coming up is where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of the other takeaways here, Danny, because we broke down a lot on the running backs, and Jayden Daniels was kind of a bonus takeaway. We didn't even have that listed, but I thought it was a good discussion.
Yeah.
We already talked about Rashee Rice. You probably don't need to rehash that, but your flock team did not do great this week. Mine didn't either, for what it's worth, but yours did a lot worse.
Let's recap this entire fucking game. So first of all, again, yes, I did suffer my first loss, put up 98 points, which was 60 less than my team has been averaging through the first 3 weeks. And I mean, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, unfortunately. Rice, torn ACL, probably done for the year, to be honest. Again, I think it's about a 95 to 99% likelihood.
It may have been confirmed already by the time we're looking at this.
May have been confirmed because what we heard from Andy Reid, it doesn't sound good. Malik Neighbors' concussion, again, I'm not as concerned with this because it does sound like a very short-term injury. Also lucky that it happened on the Thursday. May not even miss a game because there's over a week for him to recover. So hopefully it is a very non-serious injury. He's able to play next week. But at the worst, I think he's going to miss 1 game. Carson Steele, he fumbles, loses his job, 3-way committee going forward. Yeah, sure. Okay. He's going to fumble and lose his job. I guess I should have expected that with Andy Reid, but I saw 19 opportunities last week.
What did I tell you, dude? I think Carson Steele sucks. That's what I said.
He was good last week, man. He fumbles and he doesn't get a chance to even fucking remotely build off.
He wasn't good. He was fine.
He played well, dude. He broke tackles.
I don't know. I never saw it with Steele.
And that's
I think
fine. I mean,
best case scenario for Steele, it's a committee backfield all year.
Yeah. That's probably what it's going to end up being, because if he's going to fumble and just get benched, then fucking, I guess I'll take the L there. I want to file an official missing persons report. Has anybody in the Atlanta area located Kyle Pitts? Is he anywhere to be found? Has anybody seen him? And maybe he's at a Baskin Robbins eating some ice cream right now. I don't know.
Kyle Pitts. I knew this was we all knew this was possible, right? We said, okay, there's things you can point to. Kyle Pitts could be really good this year. New offense, new scheme, blah, 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 rookie season, all this stuff. We talked about Kyle Pitts all offseason, but we knew this was possible. We knew we could come week 5. We'd be like, yeah, Kyle Pitts is worth a bag of chips.
Now, the question I have for you, I have him in the flock league. I want to mention this to you right now. Is he droppable?
By week 6, if this continues, yes. But right now, no. I would pick up another tight end and bench him, but I would not drop him yet.
Yeah, sorry. Every year y'all gas this motherfucker up.
Everybody does.
I was willing to acknowledge that he dealt with a knee injury last year and that he was going into the best offense of his career. I guess the player himself is just not the same player we saw as a rookie. That's
also,
I'm willing to eat crow.
Pitts, congrats. You drafted Andrews or Kincaid instead. Yeah. And they're not good either.
Yeah. I mean, the best case scenario for the mid-round tight end is you ended up with George Kittle, who's already missed a game and also got banged up in this game. So
yeah, no, I'll talk about it in a second, but it's bad. Kyle Pitts is not looking good right now.
a couple other ones. I mean, apparently Breece Hall, we talked about, by the way, panic level like 2 to 3, but apparently he just like reeks at football now, like 3.1 yards per carry on the year.
I just think the Broncos are a really good defense. Honestly, I'm chalking that up to Breece just got stifled by a really good D. And the fucking Jets, like one thing I wish an actual takeaway that we should have taken into account coming into the season was that the Jets offense was going to be inconsistent to start the year for one simple reason. If we ranked the offensive coordinators in the NFL, how low would Nathaniel Hackett have been coming into the year?
Bottom 3.
Yeah. So that should have factored in more.
Who are the only 2 worst? By the way, I would take Arthur Smith over Nathaniel Hackett.
Any day of the week.
Any day. Like, who are even worse, realistically? Like, if I'm going through offensive coaches in the NFL, let's play a little game here. I'll read you the offense coordinator, and you tell me if you'd rather them or Nathaniel Hackett. And spoiler alert, there's probably not going to be too many that you're taking Hackett over.
I don't think there's going to be one.
I mean, there could be one with Doug Peterson.
I would rather have Doug Peterson as my offensive coordinator. I think
they're both bad.
It's actually Lawrence and the offensive line that's the problem more so than Peterson, in my opinion.
I think they're both bad for what it's worth. Like, I'm going through this. I mean, you're taking like Van Pelt over him very easily. You're taking Joe Brady over him. You're taking
Luke
fucking
Getsy,
John Dorsey over him.
Shane Waldron. I don't
care. Drew Petzing over him.
Nathaniel Hackett's the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Like, I'm going through it now, and I actually dude, I would take Getsy over him very easily.
Shane Waldron's horrid, and I would take Shane Waldron over him easily.
I think that is where the conversation is. Like, is fucking Shane Waldron.
Yeah, like there's if you can name an offensive coordinator worse than Nathaniel Hackett right now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I can't name one. I cannot name one.
Jared, I mean, Arthur Smith is straight up way better than Nathaniel Hackett.
Arthur Smith is like, his team is 3-1, and his offense has done a lot more than what they have talent wise. Yeah, he's still bad. Like, Arthur Smith would still be bad, but like, he's better than Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, not saying he isn't. Yeah, I went through Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith, I'm not calling a good offense coordinator for what it's worth. However, I mean, I will give him some flowers. The fact that he's creating a capable offense and a 3-1 football team from whatever the Pittsburgh Steelers have as their personnel and offense.
Well, their whole offensive line changed, so they're going through shuffles up there. Without a healthy Jaylen Warren, they can't run the ball at all. And Justin Fields makes at least 1 or 2 boneheaded mistakes per game. Yeah. And I don't think it will be any better if Russell Wilson ever gets in there, because Russell Wilson can't move like Justin Fields. So the offensive line,
you have to keep Fields in if you're the Steelers.
Yeah, you do.
It's your only source of offense. Like, he's like, if you're not going to have good structure to your offense, you need Justin Fields making out of structured plays. That's the way it's got to work.
I think Fields has this is Fields' last chance to be a starter in the NFL. If he shows some real growth from a boneheaded decisions, level of play, I think there's a chance that he could end up being the long-term starter in Pittsburgh. It's just that he needs to just be a game manager and slowly but surely start to weave in those big time plays that we know he was capable of in Chicago.
Yeah, so we got sidetracked a little bit. I'll just go through the final 2 points of this Lock League team. Rome Odunze getting bent over by Caleb. Caleb can't hit the broadside of a barn, apparently. Rome Odunze wide open touchdown again. Gets missed on him. I don't know. There was a little bit of tug, so maybe that affected the timing, but still, Rome Odunze completely toasts somebody on a double move, is walking into
DJ Moore did the same thing, too, for what it's
worth. Like, it's just like we need to be completing those passes, Caleb. I understand your timing was interrupted because the DB got away with a tug, but at the same time, like, lock the fuck in. You're the first overall pick, lock the fuck in. But that, and then, I mean, finally, at the end of the day, I still most likely would have won if I just started Chase Brown over Carson Steele. Again, I wouldn't have done that from a process standpoint, but also if I had said, I love this Chase Brown matchup, Carolina, smash spot, I would have still won my matchup with every single other thing going wrong. I had 5 players on my team combined for 5.4 PPR points this week.
Yeah. That's not great. I mean, so it's so funny because in my fantasy leagues, our flock league, I'm in danger of going 1-3 because unless Devon Achane and the Dolphins defense outscore Calvin Ridley by 27 tonight, Badake is going to beat me because, again, I mean, it seems like every single week I have to look at the shadow report and realize that all my receivers are never going to do well because Garrett Wilson's getting shadowed and Brandon Ayuk's getting shadowed and all this shit. So I'm 1-3. I'm going to probably be 1-3 in that league. In my home league, I'm definitely going to be 1-3 because my entire team consists of buy low candidates and nobody's actually performing, even though we all believe in them going forward. So I'm not overly tilted as far as like, I think my team will kind of correct course and start to play better. I'm just annoyed that like every other fantasy league I'm in, I swear to God, I haven't lost a game. Like, it's weird.
Except for against me.
I have, yes, but like my listener redraft team like is goated. Like it's
Oh, it's
so
insane.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so good. And same
it-
with my other redraft league, and a lot of my dynasty contenders are just like, dude, my no flocking team is, you guys should be petrified that that's a
I
house money team.
Oh, trust me, my team is already pretty much chalked up in that league. I'm without Puka, I'm without McCaffrey, I'm without Hollywood, I'm without Adams now potentially. Mixon's missed time. Like the only saving grace for me is hopefully I can liquidate some of these quarterbacks because my quarterback core in that league is Hurts, Jackson, Carr, and Darnold.
Yeah, no, my team is scary in that league.
Yeah.
Like the Stroud, Josh Allen double hammer in the super flex league,
Yeah, no.
plus like Nico and Marvin and all the guys that I have. Like that team is scary, man. Like it is a really good team. But anyways,
I mean, speaking of real quick, so I just got an offer from Bubba, and I mean, I may as well bring this up on stream right now. So Bubba is 4-0. So this is most likely a mid to late second. Like I just mentioned with you guys, I have Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, both on my bench as my other quarterbacks. I'm curious. I don't know. I basically, this is a gauge for what Darnold's value is in Dynasty. I offered this going into the week, and I don't know if I want to take it.
a second and Khalil Shakir.
It's a
for Sam
good
Darnold.
offer, but like I think Darnold might get a Baker-esque type of deal.
From who?
I mean, the Giants speak to me.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
I mean, they have Daniel Jones, maybe the Raiders then.
Raiders, yeah, something like that. I would take that personally.
I think I would. The issue, like he is 4-0. He just put up 160 points. Like if I knew that was an early to mid second, I would have smashed it without even thinking. And I actually offered this coming into the week, but I think process wise, I got to take it. But holy fuck, he looks good.
He looks great. Yeah, I mean, this could look like an idiotic move like
Yeah.
a month from now. I won't discredit that for sure.
Yeah, like you know what, Bubba, if you're watching right now, let me sit on it because fucking Darnold's really tempting me right now to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
everybody's saying hold right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's a pretty fair offer though.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree for the record. I'm gonna
speaking of quarterbacks from the 2018 class, Baker Mayfield. Oh man, it's fun to watch. It's so fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie. Like, so you guys probably know this about me if you followed football for the last 20 years. I've never seen a franchise quarterback. Like I have not, like,
except
as
for
a
1 year.
Man, like Tom Brady wasn't a franchise quarterback. Like we knew he was going to be like a 1 to 2 year rental, win a Super Bowl, and so on and so forth. Jameis Winston at the end of 2016, we thought, okay, maybe this guy's a franchise guy, and he's going to lead our team for the next 10, 15 years. Baker Mayfield looks like a franchise quarterback, man. Like this looks like a dude. Every single time I hear him get behind a mic, I'm ready to run through a wall. Every single time he makes a mistake, he recovers and he fixes what he did wrong the previous game. I love watching this dude, man. When he's playing with confidence, I literally get jacked up watching games. And he owns the Eagles. And also CJ Gardner-Johnson, this needs to get off my chest. Shut the fuck up. Literally shut the fuck up. Like every single game he's talking shit. He's all belt to ass this game. It's like, dude, you got wiped by Mike Evans in the red zone. Absolutely wiped. You were 5 yards away from him on that touchdown.
Yeah, CJ Gardner-Johnson is kind of atrocious. I'm not gonna lie. He is washed. Speaking of washed, by the way, because I do have this list as a note. Looks like Derrick Henry is now dried because I called him washed. It looks like he's dried up. Maybe he grabbed a towel, a clean towel, wiped himself off because the guy is not washed at this point. I mean, I never thought in the year 2024 I'd be watching Derrick Henry rushing in 87-yard rushing touchdowns. And I think it's just a combination of A, Derrick Henry clearly in a better situation is looking much better. And B, when you have a run scheme and a performing offensive line that is able to do this up front, we're looking at gorgeous. There's a little wham concept. Tyler Linderbaum climbing up to the next level, obviously shading down to the left side, making sure everything's sealed in. And on top of that, I mean, Mark Andrews climbing up second level. What is that, like 11 yards down the field, taking out that play side safety. For what it's worth, the corner does jump outside here to contain Derrick Henry. But if you're giving Derrick Henry this type of runway, I mean, you described it best. You're not stopping a Lamborghini once it gets off to full speed.
No, and especially you're going through a wide open tunnel with no obstacles, basically, in that situation. Yeah, I think one thing I wish I would have been in on a little bit more is I thought it was a boneheaded that people were overthinking Saquon Barkley coming out of a bad situation going into a good one. I also thought the same about Josh Jacobs.
Appreciate you, Mason.
I also thought the same thing about Josh Jacobs as well. right? If you think about it, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, Saquon goes to a better situation, leaves the Giants. Josh Jacobs goes to a better situation, leaves the Raiders. Derrick Henry was the same exact rationale.
Yeah.
The same exact rationale.
And
And we were
again,
lower on it. And again, I was willing to admit that, hey, there was a world where Derrick Henry scored 15 rushing touchdowns and, fell into the end zone, had a
my
RB
issue with
11
Henry,
season. I didn't think he would look this good. That was the thing that I was wrong about.
I mean, I will take this on the chin. My issue with Henry was that it wasn't more so Henry himself. It was the cost discrepancy between him and Jacobs. Because I thought the thesis for both was similar, except Jacobs was younger and would catch more passes. And I still hold by the fact that if I had to take Derrick Henry in the 3rd round going into the year versus Jacobs in the 4 or 5 turn, process-wise, I was always going to take Jacobs. I just wish I did mix in some more Henry because, I mean, this was always in the range of outcomes, even if I was a little bit more pessimistic on it.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think Jacobs is one of the better buy low candidates among
Absolutely.
all running backs right now because I think just the Packers are just going to be a really good team and score a lot of points. And I just want pieces of the Packers, period, let alone Jacobs or some of the more integral pieces of that offense. But yeah, I think the Derrick Henry L is it's hurting me right now.
I mean,
like
I mentioned some guy, like you can't trust many players in fantasy right now. What I can trust is the Baltimore Ravens rushing attack. And I actually listed it here. I guess I can cope with the fact that the Ravens ground game is just going to do this to everybody because last week I was like, oh my God, like the Cowboys can't tackle, 17 missed tackles. The Cowboys run defense is atrocious. And that still may very well, and again, that still may very well be the case. But the fact that the Cowboys aren't the only team that Derrick Henry and this rushing offense is doing it for makes me feel a little bit better about that coming into the year. Cause it's like, the Cowboys were down 28-6. Maybe the Ravens are just a team that can go up big points on any single team. Because I mean, going into the week, I thought the Buffalo Bills were going to be the best team in football, and they just got smacked 35-10 against the Ravens.
Yeah, I still think you should.
How many Ravens can you trust? By the way, I think it's just Henry and Lamar right now.
It is, yeah. I mean, Zay's still going to be like a wide receiver 3-4 kind of ranks for me every week. I just need to see him perform better than he's been performing.
You're gonna be disgusted by this fact. Guess who the top 2 leading receivers are right now on the Ravens?
I'm guaranteed Justice Hill and Isaiah Likely.
Both have more yards than Zay Flowers.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I mean, we can pivot right into this point here. Let's try and rattle through these last couple.
Yeah.
The elite onesies are busting at an insane rate right now.
Useless.
Like Kyle Pitts, we already talked about 6.1 PPR points per game right now. Sam Laporta pending tonight, 5.8 PPR points. Mark Andrews is tight end 45 in PPR points per game right now. There's Blake Whitehorse or whatever the hell his name is.
You would have been better off taking like a Brandon Aubrey in the mid rounds than you would elite tight end or quarterback because at least he's giving you a positional advantage.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, we'll see what happens when Ingram and Njoku come back from injury because I think Njoku will probably be back this week. But at tight end, if you didn't get Bowers, if you didn't get Kelsey,
Ferguson's your best bet now.
The Rashee Rice injury is going to make Kelsey obviously a lot better. George Kittle or Jake Ferguson, maybe Dallas Goedert as well.
I think Ferguson's your best bet if you want to get a tight end, quote unquote, low right now that's going to have consistent use in his offense. I think
Njoku is your best bet for that, to be honest. Njoku's not worth anything for most
people.
Njoku
and Ferguson, I would say, are like the two they weren't valued in that range coming into the year that will take that step up. I think you can make the case when Njoku's back and when Ferguson, like again, he's fully healthy now, but I'm saying like when they go into the fold, as soon as Njoku comes back, I think both are very easily top 5 tight ends rest of the season. Like you're taking them easily over Pitts. I think Laporta would be like the cutoff point at this point. And even that, I'm not totally convinced I wouldn't take Njoku or Ferguson over Laporta moving forward.
I mean, we'll see what happens tonight. Honestly, like I need to see Laporta have a pretty good game. My big dog team would really like if he was not terrible, because I could use him. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the tight ends, man. It was literally like if you didn't draft a guy that hit, your guy missed hard. Like it wasn't just like, oh, these guys have been decent. They're probably buy lows. It's like they have been horrid.
Yeah.
If they missed in the mid rounds.
Hey, shout out Mason. I mean, hopefully for my sake in the listener redraft league, which I mean, I'm not going to spend too much on, but if you guys were curious, both the matchups I did face Corey, I did take him down this week. So just want to give you guys the update. We did draw for this coming into the year. So my team came out with the hammer. Unfortunately, Corey was indeed hit with the Nico.
I was indeed hit with the Nico. You beat me in tone setter truthers too, unfortunately, which is not ideal. My team is really good in both leagues. I just had some bad performances, like Breece Hall and James Cook in that first league combining for like 9 points. Not great. And then this one, I mean, I think my team was pretty good.
all my players just went off, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
think
all my receivers sucked. Garrett
my
Wilson, DJ Moore, Ayuk.
my lowest score in my
ETN.
lineup had 15.4 points. It's kind of hard to win a week when that happens with your opponent.
Yeah,
But,
I also
yeah.
benched Baker Mayfield too. I played Justin Fields over him. I wasn't going to bench Purdy this week. I probably should have played Purdy and Mayfield though. That would have been a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to make that call for sure. I mean, Purdy had a pretty good spot regardless, but yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, game environment wise though, it was probably better for Mayfield if you'd followed that process going into the week. But yeah, it's
sure.
not great. And then quarterback to the elite onesies, quote unquote, like Mahomes has been like butternut,
Useless.
and I mean, he's literally taking out his best players.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw you write Mahomes as butternut, I had to add the caveat in here that he's too busy dolphin diving into his wide receiver one's knees than actually putting up fantasy points. So shout out.
Yeah. Well, and even like you might be like, oh, there's been a couple good quarterbacks. Like Jalen Hurts has been good. Kyler Murray's been good. CJ Stroud's been good. Dak Prescott's been good. Joe Burrow's been good. All of them have had one good game. All of them. And the rest of their games have been mid as hell. Like the only guys that have, I mean, Richardson too. He had one good game and he's been terrible ever since. He looks like Cam Newton one drive.
You guys are going to hate me for this, right?
Looks like my fucking mailman other plays. Like he can't even hit the broadside of a barn most of the time.
You guys are going to hate me for saying this, and maybe you wait until after the Steelers game, because even with a depleted defense, that's probably an over-under, probably 39, 40 points. I haven't actually checked it right now, but
on prime time, getting a terrible Steelers battered team.
They're underdogs, by the way. 2-point underdogs
crazy.
right now, the Steelers.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
so I expect that line to actually flip going into Sunday night, but I digress. If you can wait until after the Steelers game, maybe it's like a gross looking game, doesn't put up a lot of points. Going forward, like I mentioned at the top, with no Micah and no DeMarcus Lawrence for the long term, the Cowboys will need to pass the fuck out of the football. And I think Dak Prescott will have some production days going forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, at quarterback, if you don't have Josh Allen, if you don't have Lamar Jackson, if you don't have Jordan Love or Jayden Daniels, I guess, are the other guys that you'd probably want to have right now. The top 12 quarterbacks have not been good in ADP. No. And let's rattle these last couple. We did get a couple more rookie wide receivers breaking out onto the scene this week. We see Brian Thomas Jr., monster game, 21.9 PPR points. You guys can see that. Obviously not good that he plays for Jacksonville.
He's the wide receiver 12 in fantasy right now.
No, that was this week. He was wide receiver 12. Oh, he is wide receiver 12 in fantasy. Holy crap. Yeah, you're right. He is wide receiver 12 in fantasy. That is pretty crazy. Anyways, Brian Thomas, he's arrived. Lad McConkey also starting to arrive here. 17.7 PPR points, scored a touchdown. He's gone over 27 targets in 3 of his 4 games this season. 27% target share. He's been really, really solid. The Chargers just never fucking throw the ball, so it's kind of limited him to some degree. And then Xavier Legette, we'll talk about when we get into the waiver stuff here. 88% of the routes, big time spike with Adam Thielen out, 19.6 PPR points, and absolutely one of the top waiver adds this week for sure.
And it just goes to show you, I mean, we say this every fucking year, but rookie receivers are the biggest cheat code in your drafts. Like, I'm sure if you're in like Yahoo leagues, ESPN leagues, even in sleeper leagues, like all these guys were going significantly cheaper than when they're currently performing. Like Brian Thomas was around 7, 8, 9 pick in a lot of your leagues. Lad McConkey, probably similar range. Xavier Legette was probably your final round pick. Like, when in doubt, just take a fucking rookie receiver and you're good.
And not only that, during the season, you might as well, like, if you're going to roster Justice Hill and never use him, like, why even roster the guy?
Exactly.
Like, if you're not going to put him in your lineup, there's no reason to have him on your team. So you might as well just roster Jalen Polk or, some of these guys that haven't yet broken out, where it's like, hey, it's a rookie receiver. We'll see what happens. Like, Xavier Legette was one of those guys for like 2 or 3 games.
And I mean, we may as well transition speaking straight to Jalen Polk. Let's talk about his offense. Patriots offensive line will be the reason why Maye continues to sit. And we've already heard today, Mayo went on record saying 100% Jacoby Brissett is our starting quarterback. I am connecting the tea leaves right now. He's not saying that because he thinks that fucking Jacoby Brissett is a better quarterback than Drake Maye. He is saying that because Jacoby Brissett is fucking Rocky Balboa. The way he's eating these hits every fucking week, every snap, constant, putting on his ass, getting up, like turfing his face mask. How can you watch that confidently as a head coach and think, yeah, let me subject my 3rd overall pick to that type of beating? Jacoby Brissett was sacked 6 times this week. Jacoby Brissett has been sacked 15 times in 4 games. Simply put, you are not putting your 3rd overall pick franchise quarterback behind those circumstances right now. People are saying, oh, is Drake Maye not ready? I think he's ready.
For what it's worth. He probably does look like a rookie quarterback to some degree, but there's like, how much better of a situation, confidence and mental state wise, would Bryce Young have been if the Panthers just decided Dalton was going to start all of last year?
100%. Like, dude, if you're the Patriots, take your top 3 pick and draft the whoever the best offensive tackle is on the board. I don't care. Draft him because
or sign him in free agency and draft the best receiver in the class or whatever.
Now, oh my God! Like watching the bites of that game, and obviously, of course, going in, you expected the Niners front to get pressure off on Brissett, but like I felt bad for him, dude. Like I said, he was literally Rocky Balboa, eating hits, getting up. It looked like the first fight against Apollo Creed, for crying out loud.
Yeah, no, he's just let him take the beating if you're the Patriots. Like, there's no reason to do that. Mason mentions that Leggett was his number 1 receiver based on dollars spent. He was my number 3 receiver based on dollars, or my number 2 actually based on dollars spent. Number 3 in terms of overall thing. Just ignore Troy Franklin at the top of that.
17% for me, by the way.
But yeah, hopefully Troy Franklin has some late season upside because he's not been useful at all to start the year. But yeah, Leggett was also one of my highest rostered receivers as well. We have one more takeaway, Danny, that we want to get through.
Quickly want to address this. My UD teams are quietly dominating, and Rice injury will help. Again, really sucks for my season long and my dynasty portfolio with Rashee Rice. However, luckily, the only shares I took of Rashee Rice was when he was depressed at the 8th round cost. Because once he started going like the 3rd, the 4th round on underdog, especially in Best Ball Mania, I mean, we talk about this all the time. You want to accordingly adjust your textures. So if you see a player that was consistently going in the 8th round, taking him in the 3rd or 4th round and competing against those teams who got him in the 8th round was always going to be a tough play. So even like Rashee Rice would have had to do what he was doing all year to pay off at that 3rd, 4th round price tag, given the rise that he saw in his ADP value and underdog. So luckily for me, the only shares I got of him were when he was an 8th round pick, because that was when people were concerned about the suspension.
Yeah.
I got lucky.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we had to be with Rashee Rice. It's like he needed to crush to be able to pay off the closing line ADP value that you were missing there. So, Danny, you have one more takeaway here that the Vikings might be the best team in the NFL.
I mean, we're 4 weeks in.
Arnold already.
We're 4 weeks in, dude. Tell me what's all that different between the makeup of this Vikings team versus what we've seen from the 49ers in the last few years. Like, let's just go through it. Their defense is one of the actual few in the league that gives problems to Shanny scheme coaches. Brian Flores is the one kryptonite for the LaFleur, for the Shanahan, for all of these Shanny scheme coaches we've seen. Their offense is loaded with talent. Their offensive line is good. Jordan Addison is healthy. They'll probably get TJ Hawkinson back in the next couple of weeks. And they have the type of coach that can hide Sam Darnold's deficiencies. Like we've talked about with Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. But does he get amplified being coached under Kyle Shanahan with the scheme that they're running? Absolutely. I think that's going to be the case for what we're seeing from Sam Darnold right now. I don't think this is a fluke with what we're seeing with Darnold in terms of the production we can expect rest of the season, because I believe so much in the offensive personnel, and I believe so much in what Kevin O'Connell's been doing. On top of that, again, like I said, this offense is detailed around avoiding Sam Darnold's deficiencies to the point where we're only really seeing the best traits out of Darnold, staying in the pocket, delivering strikes downfield. We're not really seeing the boneheaded Darnold that has really plagued him throughout his NFL career. And I think we can attribute a ton of that to Kevin O'Connell. And what I've also learned is that we've mentioned the nurturing of the quarterback position, the overall situation that these guys are in. Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, they've all proven that case to be, or that point to be the case. So people that are writing off Trevor Lawrence right now for the exact opposite of the coin, if he gets a proper offensive coach with the personnel that they have on offense, I'm not concerned long-term for Lawrence. Now, am I concerned this year that, Doug Peterson maybe doesn't know how to scheme open a good offense? That's my concern. But if he does end up hiring, let's just say Clint Kubiak goes over to the Jaguars,
and Johnson,
he's going to be the biggest buy in Dynasty
or something like that.
He's going to be the biggest buy in Dynasty if that happens.
Yeah, and I'm not really looking forward to saying that for a second straight year on Trevor Lawrence if that's the case. So hopefully we see some better performances coming out of him. But it's also, for what it's worth, should probably send some offers for JJ McCarthy in Dynasty right now.
Oh, yeah. If JJ McCarthy, he might be like the quarterback 19 or 20 because he's not going to be played this year. He is the biggest lock, in my opinion, to be valued as a second-round startup pick next year with what we're seeing.
If you are a rebuilding team and you don't have JJ McCarthy on your roster, you have absolutely no excuse not to buy him. Like, none.
Like, okay, let's play the Dynasty game in terms of like quarterbacks we would send in a rebuilding situation straight up for JJ McCarthy. Where does the line end? Because I think you can even make the case. You can't say this yet, but in a year's time, if you told me JJ McCarthy was valued higher than Justin Herbert, would you be shocked?
No, not at all. I would
I wouldn't
actually
either.
like knowing that you're going to probably get a plus on top of it. I would easily send Justin Herbert for JJ McCarthy right now because you're probably getting like a
first round
plus on
pick
top of JJ McCarthy right now.
Yeah, you'd probably even get like a mid projected 2025 first plus on that right now, given the market.
Yeah, I don't know about that much, but I would fucking rather have JJ McCarthy in 2-2s than Justin Herbert.
I don't think that's outlandish. Again, like I do think
if I'm in a rebuilding situation, but like, dude, Justin Herbert's like averaging like 11 PPR points per game right now. Like he's useless for fantasy.
And they're winning games to the point where like Harbaugh's going to be there probably for the next 4 to 6 years.
Yeah, he's a good coach. He's clearly made a bit like him and Minter have made a huge difference on that team.
It's hilarious how we're both talking about the guy that coached both these guys with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, it's funny.
Who knows what JJ looks like? Hey, if it's anything close to Sam Darnold, he's going to be worth 2+ first round picks.
I know it's an extremely tiny sample size, but he looked capable enough in the preseason that I'm like, dude, he can be as good as Sam Darnold is right now. And if he's as good as Sam Darnold, he's going to be a top 6 dynasty.
And it's compounded because Bush, how many times when we were going through JJ McCarthy, like in the offseason, we said, can he handle more of a workload? Are they limiting him at Michigan? Or are they just running their offense and he's making plays? I've always been a believer in the fact that when Michigan needed a play in the passing game, JJ McCarthy was making the play. But the problem is they were so dominant in the run, and Harbaugh's tendencies didn't really see that showcase quite enough. Well, Jim Harbaugh's doing that to a consensus top 5 talent in the NFL quarterback. And we're seeing right now what the Viking system is doing. I am so confident in JJ McCarthy going forward, man.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think you could definitely take everything that Darnold's doing as a huge, huge bull signal for JJ McCarthy. I think that is a very, very reasonable takeaway from what Sam Darnold has done so far. So let's talk about these dynasty trades because we've been going a long time on these takeaways, but there was a shit ton of them this week.
We had to.
It was outrageous to be doing that. So let's talk about what was the first trade that we had on the docket here. This one's from Ethan's trade. Where is it? Here we go. Ethan's trade. We like to talk about dynasty trades on this because we like talking about the dynasty market. We have talked about dynasty a little bit, but this was one trade that I thought was interesting because there's a lot of like fuzzy names in this one. With Jonathan Brooks coming off of IR, with Xavier Worthy obviously now being thrusted into like the number 1 receiver role with Rashee Rice potentially out for the year. He says too, this is also a separate topic. We can make an entire video on. This is a top 3 projected first rounder that he's going after. So this is a loaded trade right here. He doesn't mention the scoring format, but I know Ethan plays Superflex typically, so I'm assuming it's a Superflex first rounder. What are you thinking about this trade here?
Well, Superflex first rounder or not, I mean, I'm not spending a top 3 pick on a quarterback this year anyways. The only way would be if Shedeur was like the first overall pick, and then maybe we have
I think if Milroe or one of the Russian quarterbacks were top 5 picks, I think they'd probably be the 102 or 103.
Over Tet and Luther?
Potentially. Like if Jalen Milroe goes top 5, like...
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah. That's a close trade discussion, honestly, because I mean Xavier Worthy. I understand he scored 2 touchdowns in week 1, but this past week was his best game of his career for sure. He had 73 yards, 5 targets. He had the role that we wanted. Now with Rashee Rice potentially missing the next 2 years, very, very interesting. And not to mention, I would wait to make this deal. The reason being is you already know it's going to be a top 3 projected first. You already know that at this point, this is about an even value deal. And that's with the caveat that we haven't seen Jonathan Brooks play. The reason why I'm saying that is if you wait 2 or 3 weeks and Jonathan Brooks is getting the Chuba workload, we're talking about you're probably taking that second and transitioning it into a first.
We live in a world right now where a month from now, Jonathan Brooks could be the RB3 in Dynasty.
Absolutely.
If a month from now he's getting the workload that we all think he's probably going to get, people will take him over Jahmyr Gibbs.
What's stopping him from being the dynasty running back 1?
Probably Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson.
But that's what I mean. How big of an advantage have they been? What if Jonathan Brooks goes out there and he's averaging 20 points per game in his first 3 starts?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's outrageous. I think it's less likely to happen because he's coming off of an injury.
Disagree.
But I think the workload alone will be enough to propel him like around Devon Achane area.
Yeah, again, I don't disagree. I think like the likely projection is like top 6 to 8 dynasty running back, but I do think RB1 overall is in his range of outcomes if he shows what he was showing at Texas prior to the knee injury. Because from a film standpoint, like The knee injury was really the only concern I have, and maybe some pure like long speed because he's probably more of a late 4.4, early 4.5 type of guy. How do you run at the combine? But in terms of just running back instincts, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield, like he's got the exact 3-down skill set we're looking for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other part of this trade is like this 101, man.
If it's 101, that's when I would change my answer because I think Jeanty's going to be the RB1 in Dynasty the moment he gets drafted.
Yeah, like that's the other part of this is like, I love Tet. I love Luther. I love
Jeanty is different.
Hampton, QB1 potentially. Bro, if it's Jeanty that you're getting in this deal, like the guy has 845 yards and 13 touchdowns in fucking 4 games, and his PFF grade is 97.
Dude, he's having the best running back season I have ever seen in my life. Ever. Like we're talking about legitimately, like you said, nearly a 98 PFF grade. And for what it's worth right now, he's averaging over 7 yards after contact per attempt. I believe number 8 in that metric is averaging 3 less yards after contact per attempt than him. 3, yeah. Like he's doubling a guy in the top 10 of the same
like Amari and Hampton's averaging like almost 5 yards after contact per attempt. He's having a great season.
He's also up there, by the way.
Catching passes and stuff. And just, Jeanty is like just on a different fucking level than all of these guys.
You see he's also up there in that metric?
Is that your Michigan guy?
No, Jonah Coleman, dude. Jonah Coleman's been fucking phenomenal this year.
Yeah, I would say next week we'll probably do like a first or a 2-round mock draft of the 2025 class because we definitely need to update you guys on what's been going on in college football and how things are stacking up. But like, we absolutely are taking a victory lap on Jeanty. Like me and you are way higher on him than everybody else.
I got clowned on in a Devy chat for taking him 103 in a Devy draft because apparently that was too high because I should have taken Trevion Henderson over him.
Yeah, and the only person that was like, I can't believe I got sniped on Jeanty was me. Yeah, and I was picking 105 or 104. I was like, Jeanty was my RB1 coming into the season in the class. He was my 101 or 102, 103, depending on what you thought of the receivers coming into the season as well. Like, he's a stud, and he had such a great sophomore year that he compared favorably to Bijan and Christian McCaffrey as a sophomore.
You know, it's fucked. By the way, too, we're not even seeing the receiving side of Jeanty right now. He had a 91 PFF grade as a receiver last year. It's just he's so fucking dominant as a rusher, they're not even throwing him the football because they're like, why would we even throw the football to begin with when we got a guy that has 845 rushing yards in 4 games? Actually, not even 3.5 games because he sat out a half against an FCS school. Could you imagine what his stat line would have been against Portland State if he played the entire game?
Not only that, but like he did this. 2 of these games came against Power 4 conference teams.
What was
like
against
Oregon? One was against Oregon, and Washington State was undefeated and was a much better like level of competition than what the Mountain West conference that Jeanty plays in.
One of his touchdown runs this week, he broke like 8 fucking tackles and he got contacted in the backfield, man.
He's insane. He's literally insane. Like, this is one of those guys that I hate to say this, but like we're talking because we just did this with Bijan. It's like, oh, he's this elite prospect we haven't seen. Like, Jeanty's already as good of a prospect as Bijan was, and he might be better depending on how he tests.
That's what I was gonna say, dude. I don't think there's gonna be anything stopping me by the end of the year of saying that. Is he better as a prospect than Bijan and Barkley? Like, straight up. Like, I think both those guys were better athletes. Again, we'll find out. If Jeanty goes out there and runs like 4.41.
Yeah, if he runs 4.41 at 215, 5'9", he's a better prospect than both of them, in my opinion.
Like, it's honestly, there's like no holes in this profile. None.
Other than his level of competition is the only hole.
And he did it against Oregon, so that's even dispelled.
No,
now.
he's a machine. He is a literal machine. Like, I would, if you are caught in limbo right now, like the biggest thing I could tell you right now, if you're caught in limbo, get every productive asset off your goddamn team and tank for this guy.
I feel so good right now. Again, shout out Brock if you're watching this. But in our Devy Disciples League, he took Jeanty at the 105, I believe, in our Devy draft this year.
And I want to die because I traded him the 105.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny how like we were both high on Jeanty, and now I have Jeanty. You guys might roast me for this in the chat, but I don't think we should at this point, given what we see from Jeanty. So I traded Bijan Robinson straight up for Jeanty and Brooks in that deal. And as a team that's not fully competing this year, I am so excited.
Yeah. Well, like I just said with Brooks, it wouldn't shock me if a month from now he's the RB3 in Dynasty. And like you said, like Jeanty's going to be RB1 in Dynasty, most likely the second he comes out. Because, if Jahmyr Gibbs went in the top 15 of the NFL draft, Jeanty is going in the top 15 of the NFL draft.
If Jahmyr Gibbs is going top 15, Jeanty should be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, well, and I saw Jim Nagy tweeted out today that like there's only like 10 players that NFL teams are considering like blue chip first round prospects. I guarantee you Jeanty is one of them. I guarantee it.
He has to be, like, straight up. Like, again, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I severely doubt he's going to be available at our pick. Like, I would be fucking bewildered. Like, I think there's no shot he goes outside of the top 10 at this point.
Yeah, like there's a chance that like if the Raiders are picking like 4, he's their pick.
Could
you know what I mean? Like, they might pick him like top 5.
Could you imagine how much work he would get?
Yeah, no, the dude's an absolute machine. Anyways, let's talk about the other trades here.
Sorry,
we do have 2 other ones.
Sorry, we go off on tangents. You guys,
I put the timestamp officially as Ashton, Jeanty, Glaze. Lumber here sends in a trade, 12-team Dynasty Superflex, full PPR tight end premium, about to be 1-3 rebuilding, and he received the Waddle side. Other manager is currently potentially 0-4, so he gets the Waddle side, and again, to the Jeanty point, very high first round pick.
Okay, if this guy's gonna be 0-4, what is his rationale of trading his own first round pick?
Well, you know what? A lot of people don't know what the hell they're doing. That's the rationale. He thinks he's getting 2 productive assets to keep him out of this hole that he's in right now. And Jared Goff, like, am I buying Will Levis? No, not at all.
If you're telling me, okay, as much as I love London, let's just say Waddle plus a 2 equals London at most case scenario. You can even make the case Waddle versus London.
What you're looking at there.
I'm not completely writing off Levis. Again, I am a little bit concerned, but at the same time,
I'm writing off Levis.
Even if you wrote him off for this deal, like, Jared Goff is not worth a 2025 first round pick. Straight up. He's not. Like, not
an early one. Not an early one. A late one.
Would you pay? Okay, you knew the picks at 109, 110. Are you paying Omari and Hampton for him? Are you paying Travis Hunter
Hampton?
For him?
I don't think will be 109, 110. I think it'll be a top 5 pick.
Okay. Quinshon Judkins, Travis Hunter.
If I wasn't 0-4, yeah, I'd be okay. I would be okay paying 111, 112, or 110 for Jared Goff if I was an actual competitive team in need of a quarterback.
But I think that would, like, even that feels a little rich because you're buying.
He's got a big contract. He's on a top 5 offense. I think he's a fine buy for a late first round pick. But if you're 0-4, no.
Yeah. Regardless, though, you take the pick. Anyways, this is crazy. Sorry, I'm still thinking about Ashton Jeanty. Honestly, I'm happy I'm thinking about Ashton Jeanty now because I was thinking only about Rashee Rice coming into the live stream. So
yes, we just think about Jeanty to make us feel better. Anyways, I also just real quick Debbie shout out, by the way. Trey Harris was he's so good. I just nailed that across my leagues too.
Now, if I can access the sheet, Debbie Degeneracy is the league, right, that we just did. Debbie Degenerates. Yeah. So currently in my prospect pool for this league, I have Ashton Jeanty. I have Trey Harris. I have Jonah Coleman. I have Garrett Nussmeier, who's been very productive this year. Maybe he slides in like early conversation in the draft. Jordan James, who's been a bell cow for Oregon this year. Cam Coleman, who's a freshman receiver, and when he's played has showed big flashes. But on top of that, I also have Darius Taylor, who's a workhorse running back at Minnesota right now as a true sophomore. I am in like 15 Dynasty plus Debbie leagues. About 15.
Yeah, I'm in 13 Dynasty leagues, 2 Debbie. Yeah. 2 of them are Debbie, to be clear. I'm in 13 Dynasty leagues, 2 of them are Debbie.
Yeah, by the way, shout out Ron, I think made this whole folder, but
yeah, well, let's go to mine. Go to mine real quick. Cause like I got Ollie Gordon. I mean, Ollie's looked kind of bad recently.
When you sniped Hampton from me, I was fuming.
Ollie Gordon, Amari and Hampton, Io Manor. I took Travis Hunter with like one of my last picks because nobody knew if he was going to play cornerback or wide receiver. And I actually feel better now about that pick than I did at the time. Nick Anderson hasn't been healthy all year. So hopefully he's either back soon or he's probably going to be in the 26 class, but either way, he's an interesting player himself as well. And I have Trey Harris in the other Debbie league, which is why I shouted him out there.
And you know how mad I am at myself for fucking knowing that Omar and Hampton was my RB2 coming into the year, that I didn't try to even more, like I tried to trade up with you, but you were like, you knew what you had. You weren't fucking selling. I wish I was just more aggressive on it, dude. Cause
I traded up for him too. I was like, I'm not letting him fall any further.
Like, dude, the guy looks like Nick fucking Chubb. That's what he looks like.
Great. He looks like Nick Chubb. He has like 22 targets in 4 games or whatever. Like he's been an elite receiver as well. Anyways, Mikey, shout out to Mikey. If you guys are OG listeners to the channel, he used to make videos with us actually. One quarterback PPR as a contender We're going to roast you a little bit here, Mikey. After a crushing loss last week, I sent away Ayuk, Addison, Brooks, and Corum, and I received Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin. He said it's hard to complain about landing Chase. Definitely don't disagree. I mean, in a one quarterback startup, he's a top 5 pick.
Yep.
But that is a lot to give up, in my opinion.
So, I mean, either way we slice it, Corum is like a filler at this point, I'll be honest. He's probably like what? If you had to redraft today, what do you think his equivalent value is an early 3rd round pick?
Probably a late second in a one quarterback
league. Yeah, fair. Okay, so we'll add that. Basically, the meat and potatoes of this deal is Ayuk, Addison, and Brooks for Jamar Chase and Terry McLaurin. Yeah, honestly, I think it's a pretty fair deal as a contender. The reason why I'm saying this is Ayuk and Brooks for Jamar Chase is probably how I would equate it. And even though I prefer Addison to McLaurin, with how the Commanders' offenses looked, if you're a contender, I think he's going to outscore Addison the rest of the season. Again, I do think this is quite the price, but at the same time, like if Chase is a top 3 to 5 wide receiver and Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver 2 the rest of the way, I think you accomplish your goal. It's just the way you get killed on this deal is if Jonathan Brooks is like a top 5 dynasty running back.
Honestly, I just think it's a sell low on every asset in the deal. That's why I don't like it.
Gotcha.
I think he sold low on Ayuk, Addison, and Brooks. That's why I don't like the deal.
Yeah.
If again, could Ayuk have a disappointing season and be like wide receiver 26 in points per game? Sure. Yeah. But I also think he's one of the better buy lows in fantasy right now.
I don't disagree.
There's a chance he's a lot better than he's been. I also think that I saw this coming from Addison. Like if Sam Darnold looks great, and Addison's going to be a lot better. And that's precisely, he did this last week. Like you said, Addison has 2 touchdowns in his first game back and Jonathan Brooks was out of sight, out of mind. So nobody's valuing him as a top 10 dynasty running back unless you're super long-term focused on that kind of stuff. And most people aren't. So I don't really like the process of the deal. I understand getting Jamar Chase. And I think McLaurin, I think he's probably a minor upgrade to production wise than Addison, but I don't think it's a big difference.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see Daniel Krause also saying Ryan Williams looking like Amari Cooper Jr. I mean, him and Jeremiah Smith are just different gravy.
You see, he changed his Instagram picture to Michael Vick holding.
Did he actually?
Yeah, because he destroyed Georgia Bulldogs, obviously, and he literally changed his Instagram profile picture to Michael Vick.
Yeah, that is pretty
crazy thing for a 17-year-old to be doing. You weren't even alive, bro, when that happened. Like you weren't even alive. You were born 2007.
Dude, my cousin, my little cousin, as I always refer him to, he's older than Ryan Williams. He's a late 2006. He's older than Ryan Williams, dude. You know how fucking ancient that makes me feel?
Yeah, the guy's born in 2007 is a pretty insane.
You're 9 years older than him, Bush. What the fuck?
I'm 9 years older than this guy. And like last draft class, like Stetson Bennett was in it and he was older than me. You know what I mean? Like that's just a wild swing.
Man, like this. Yeah, the 2027 picks, if your league allows you to trade for them, go get them now before people start
there's children out here making plays in the SEC.
And on top of that, I mean, like the true freshman quarterback, like Dylan Raiola, obviously looks really good. Mahomes Jr., as people like to call him.
Jeremiah Smith, obviously at Ohio State.
Yeah, the DJ Lagway, I believe, from Florida. He hasn't been a full-time starter, but when he's come in for Florida, has actually looked good. So that's something to monitor. Like the fact that we can even talk about guys in their true freshman year, that means you probably should be buying those picks because come 2027, there's going to be more guys that emerge.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's
although I will say maybe sometimes it ends up as Rondale Moore, but neither of those guys look like him. But
yeah. Well, and people refuse to look at these guys for what they are going to be when they come out from the draft. And people should have looked at Rondale Moore like he's 5'7" or whatever. Like just because he's good as a freshman doesn't mean he's going to be an elite prospect. And Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith and these guys that have the size to actually be NFL wide receiver ones, that's kind of the important part. And the fact that they're decorated high school guys who are now producing like 400 plus yards in 4 games as 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, like that's where you got to look for.
This is going to sound like outlandish right now, but hear me out. Anytime I watch Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, I can't not see fucking. You can't call me crazy. I can't stop seeing Julio Jones and Tyreek Hill. I can't.
Yeah, that does.
Like, did you see that catch on the boundary? He fucking taps his feet and makes someone's miss and just fucking outruns everybody on the field. Like,
yeah,
what?
No, he's insane, bro. I mean, yeah. And the joke someone asked, basically, Bulldogs dog fighting. Is that why he went with Michael Vick? Yeah, that's the joke. Unfortunately, it's a dark one, but he did go in that direction. Let's close the stream out here. We've been going for an hour and 10 or an hour and 15 so far. Let's talk about the waiver ads because I tweeted this out earlier today, dude. This is the best like not top of the line waiver ads. Let me just get that clear. The top guys, there's been better top guys. I mean, Achan last year was a drop your fab ad. I said that in the waiver TikTok I did last year. Jerome Ford was a really good ad last year. Obviously Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams were great ads. This year we've seen Jordan Mason and J.K. Dobbins and guys like that. But as far as depth, this is the best waiver slate I've seen in 5 years doing this in terms of how many good options are available widely in sharper leagues, especially too. Because it's one thing, it's like, oh, there's like a bunch of good 45, 50% rostered guys. Like most of the guys that I'm talking about in the waiver video, which will be coming out tomorrow, are like 10% or less, or 15, 20% or less.
Which makes me sick knowing that I have no fab left in the flock league, because I'm like, oh, sure. What are the odds that a big week in a sharp league, we see a ton of waiver wire ads? And again, doesn't mean I'm going to give up, for the record. If you fuckers are listening to me right now, I will be up at 3 a.m. I know every Wednesday, the only guys I have competition on for the fucking free ads are going to be the land guys. Because guess what? None of you guys are staying up at 3 a.m. East Coast time. That's why we're built different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stay up till that time because
Danny, plenty of fab if you want some. I mean, may as well send an offer.
Players, my man.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine free adding, to be honest.
Yeah,
I did get Trey Tucker for free, so we take that. Drop the.
It's annoying me that Mason's in here because we're about to say who our best waiver ads are. You know what the nice thing is though? The best waiver ad this week, in my opinion,
is on my team
already because I picked him up. And Dontavian Wicks is the best ad this week, in my opinion. How much would I spend on him is what a lot of people are going to ask. He is absolutely worth a #1 priority if you're still archaic and play.
Are you dumping the whole bucket on him?
No, I would not dump the 50%. Whole bucket, but whatever you have left on your waiver budget, I would drop half of that.
50%?
I would be willing to go upwards of 50% if you still have all of your fab dollars. I would be like, let's say you have 65 fab dollars left. I'd be willing to go up to like 40 fab, 35 fab if I were in your position, needing wide receiver production like most people are going to need, because we've had a lot of busts. We've had a lot of injuries. Rashee Rice, obviously one of those guys. Dontavian Wicks definitely is one of the best ads this week. I mean, you look at what Dontavian Wicks did this week, you see it right there. 80% of the routes have always been the issue for Dontavian Wicks. 27% targets per route run all season long. 20% target share all season long, 29% targets per route run this week, 26%.
20% target share on 61% of the routes. 20% target share on 61% of the routes is insane.
Yeah. He's easily the best ad this week, in my opinion. He is going to be a top 36 wide receiver as long as Christian Watson is out of the lineup, and he's probably going to be
top 24 receiver with Watson out. Is he a top 24 receiver with Watson out?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Goes to show you. I completely agree. He's got to be the #1, especially knowing, I mean, was it the most efficient looking day for the Packers offense? Absolutely fucking not. Did Jordan Love at the beginning of the game look like a quarterback coming off of an injury in terms of missing reps? Sure.
Which I loved, by the way, as somebody playing Badake in the Jordan Love, Jayden Reed stack.
He could have dropped 5 touchdowns.
Dude, I was feeling so good this week. Midway through the 1 p.m. games, I'm like, oh God, Jordan Love's not doing well. DJ Moore's not doing well. Jayden Reed's not doing well. Everybody, Danny's raising his hand here. Everybody on Badake's team was not performing. And then Jordan Love and Jayden Reed went fucking nuclear in the second half. And now I'm going to lose, most likely, unless, like I said, Miami's defense matches Calvin Ridley and Devon Achane goes over 27 points, or I get a Will Levis, meltdown, and Dolphins defense gets a pick 6 and 7 sacks or something like that.
By the way, we talked about Levis earlier in a Dynasty trade. This night is very pivotal to his Dynasty value.
I mean, he's the Monday night against the Dolphins specialist. He's done this before. Last year, his best game of the year by far was Monday night against the Dolphins.
Hear me out, though. Island game, young quarterback. He's either going to be worth a 3rd-round pick in Dynasty after this game or a 1st-round pick, depending on how he plays.
I don't think there's a world in which he's worth a 1st-round.
So if he goes out there, throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, you don't think people are going to push him up to like Dynasty quarterback 16?
You live to fight another day, and you send out as many goddamn offers as you possibly can.
I don't disagree for the record.
But bad this year. He has been so bad this year.
I don't disagree for the record, but also knowing how the market works, if he goes out there on an island game and actually carves up the Dolphins defense, people will overreact.
Yeah, no, he will. You're right. Speaking of which, someone mentioned like we're waiting for that video in weekly rankings. This week's schedule, and going forward, we are going to pivot the schedule a little bit.
Both rankings videos on Saturday.
Yeah, both rankings videos will now be coming out on Saturday just because of,
More
I think,
information.
yeah, more information. It's harder for Danny/me this past week to go through and prognosticate who's going to be back on the field. Plus, the videos, just from our perspective, do a lot better on Saturday as well. So we're going to drop running back, wide receiver tier list on Saturdays going forward. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And then also too, we're going to have a new Friday video, taking the matchups that matter video, the part where I go through must start and must sit players. We're going to make that its own video on Friday. That'll be like a short 8 to 10 minute video. And then the matchups that matter video will be a lot shorter than as well on Thursdays. That'll be 8 to 10 minutes. And let me know in the comments, the matchups that matter video, I've noticed this from the analytical standpoint, it doesn't do as well as it did last year. So would you guys prefer if I went through matchup by matchup, game by game, and broke down the best matchups to pay attention to in those games, or the way that I've been doing it currently, which is like the best over-unders to target, the lowest over-unders to avoid, things of that nature? I think personally, it might make more sense if I'm going through game by game and just talking about, this is the wide receiver cornerback matchup to pay attention to into this game. This is the running back who has the best matchup in this game, blah, blah, blah. I'm still going to give you the information of like the over-unders, implied points, sharps, betting, like that kind of stuff. It'll just be kind of like in graphic form as opposed to like me kind of breaking it down. A lot of people saying game by game. Yeah, I figured you guys would probably, and Mason's obviously the YouTube expert here, so he's giving me some advice. But
shout out Mason, the guy knows fucking YouTube.
It was not last year. So 2 years ago, I used to do it game by game. I did not do it last year game by game. I did it kind of the way I'm doing it right now. So people are saying game by game. I'll definitely do that going forward. But that'll be the new Thursday video. It'll still be a relatively short video. It'll just be kind of going through and talking about the game environments. And then Wednesday we'll have 2 different trade targets, running backs, wide receivers, and then tomorrow obviously I'll have waiver stuff. So again, that's a lot of information, but let's go through the rest of the waiver ads. Again, it's just a preview. Tomorrow I'll give you guys more in-depth looks of that. To me, the second best waiver ad of the week is Xavier Legette. Given what he did, route participation wise, again, 88% of the routes. He was a first round pick in the NFL draft. He's an explosive guy, 19.6 PPR points, 24% target share. I get Deontay Johnson is the leading receiver there. He's going to be the guy that commands the most
sleeper
targets.
Video was he on?
He was on your sleeper video, I believe. Yeah, Xavier Legette, definitely one of the better ads this week. He is 39% rostered, unlike Wicks, who's 18% rostered. So good chance he's rostered in a lot of your like sharper leagues. Like I know in our Flock League, Green Means Money actually has him. But yeah, the pickup and the thesis for Xavier Legette is kind of coming to fruition. I talked about him last week as one of the best pickups before this happened. So hopefully you did that.
Sorry, I got to mention that if Joe had asked me, I would have said go Legette. That's all I'm going to say there, Mr. Mace.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Yeah, like so some people grabbed him last week. Yeah, he was definitely like a sharp ad last week because we all could have seen this coming, to be honest. Like with Adam Thielen out, we figured his route participation would be up. Jonathan Mingo's dust. So yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense there. Number 3 waiver ad, again, early
real
look
quick,
again.
Last thing on Legette. Everything we've heard from Canales when they said they're going to get him on the field and how they're going to use him was basically coming to fruition.
Yeah.
You don't want this guy to run the most nuanced, detailed route tree, but can you get him the ball in space is pretty much the whole sentiment after they, when they traded up in the first round to get him, how they were going to use him. And we saw that, man. Like the guy could be a fucking really good NFL wide receiver if you just get him running the stuff he does well. Do I think Deebo Samuel is the most nuanced route runner? Absolutely fucking no. But what he does well is get open underneath and create after the catch. Now, on top of that, Legette, probably his biggest strength as a prospect was working down the field and high pointing the football. So if you're telling me you can potentially get like a Deebo Samuel that can even work down the field, like my call for him was if he reached the ceiling range of outcome again, do I think he's going to be the pure route runner this guy is? No. But like I saw AJ Brown in his game and I said that in the prospect profile.
Yeah. He's somewhere like between the dichotomy of AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. He does like all elements of each guy, but he's not really one guy specifically.
I agree. I think that's the best way to put it.
We liked him, man. I know his prospect profile was weird because he wasn't productive for 4 years, but he had a lot of personal shit he was dealing with. And his final year, bro, Kamari Lassiter's a starting corner in the NFL right now, and he bitch slapped him on the Georgia Bowl. Like he beat the shit out of him all game long.
Back of his hand, rings on every finger, just
every single big play was against Kamari Lassiter in that game, South Carolina versus Georgia. And that tape is really, really good for like he went in the first round. Like the NFL teams primarily look at tape. And yes, his accent is definitely the best part of the fact that he
celebration had me crying.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it was so funny when he's like, what's the name of his horse again?
Oh, fuck, I forget. Oh, I forget the name.
Dollar Bill. He's like, yeah, I wrote Dollar Bill after that touchdown. Like, that was elite. That was elite. It was such a good celebration. It was so funny that he said that. Like,
Dude,
obviously, as a Bucs fan, I'm familiar with a guy who's pretty into horses. So, it's definitely, yeah, Dollar Bill. Anyways, he's one of the best pickups this week for
By
sure.
far.
Especially if you guys lost a wide receiver like Rice or Watson or whoever you might have lost this week. He is one of the best pickups for sure.
And this is why the thesis of the waiver wire is always prioritizing upside. Like, obviously, of course, if you need like weekly plays, I don't mind prioritizing intermediate short term. But if you're doing that every single time, I mean, I'll say this is a guy who needed a running back play so badly that I went and spent $37 on Carson Steele. Guess what? In that week, if I had spent $6 on fucking Xavier Legette, would I be in a better spot right now? Probably.
Yeah. No, literally. And not only that too, but I like the way I like to think of my team. If you have a 6 bench spot, right? Like you're in a league with 6 bench spots, you should have one guy probably in reserve to be like a fill-in starter. Yes. And maybe like 2, like for example, on our Flock League team, I have Tank Dell who's out, who's normally like a startable asset, but he's out for this game, especially if you're dealing with injuries and things of that nature. The other like 4 bench spots that you have should be Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Tyler Algier, even like lower named guys that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Like Antonio
Chase Brown
Gibson.
was the guy people were asking, should we drop going into the week?
Yeah. Like even like, okay, nobody's available in your league. You play in a deep league, 7-8 bench spots. Like throw Tyrone Tracy at the end of your bench and see what happens. Like you never know. Trey Sermon, he was exactly that type of person. He is the 3rd best waiver ad this week. Trey Sermon is probably going to be a starting running back, startable running back for the next 1 to 2 games. Jonathan Taylor is probably not going to be out very long. I don't expect him to go to IR or anything like that. But Trey Sermon was the number 2 running back here. It is a very good chance between him and Tyler Goodson, who played 2% of snaps in this week, that Trey Sermon has 15 to 18 carries and a couple targets this next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are not a good team. So there's a very good chance that if you need a running back spot start, maybe you've been playing Jerome Ford as your RB2 all year and Nick Chubb comes back this week, you could probably pick up Trey Sermon and throw him into your lineup.
Yeah, no, 100%. I quickly will interject with one thing because I don't want to spend too long on it, but did see a question here. If you detach the name from this production, this is a droppable player. It's a droppable player, straight up. That is a droppable player. As soon as you attach Mark Andrews' name to this, that's when it's like, ooh, should I drop? Dude, if he's playing on less than 50% of the freaking snaps, and his best
in 2 straight games,
and his best play of the week was climbing to the 2nd level and sealing a safety on an 87-yard touchdown run, that is a problem. And like I said, the 2 leading receivers on the Ravens right now, 167 yards, Isaiah Likely, 161 yards, Justin Hill. That means that everybody on this team is averaging less than 50 receiving yards per game. What is the upside for Andrews? Like, seriously, what is the upside now?
Yeah, I would give him one more week, not to start. Don't start him. I'd give him one more week of being on my roster.
Him and Kyle Pitts are fucking on their last string.
If you had to make a decision right now, my number, spoiler alert for tomorrow's video, my number 8 waiver ad of the week is Tucker Kraft. If you had to drop Mark Andrews for Tucker Kraft right now, I would do it.
Same. I wouldn't even think twice. And I'm going to be left at the decision with Kyle Pitts. Now, I have him in the Flock League. I know Mason's probably hearing this right now. I'm nervous, man. Like, and I was the biggest Kyle Pitts proponent coming to the year. I'm more nervous on Andrews than I am Pitts personally, just because
at least Pitts is running routes.
Yes, that's where I'm at with it.
It's probably not going to matter.
I put Andrews at last night. I think you should switch those. I think Kraft should be ahead of Andrews, honestly. Oh, Kraft ahead of Andrews. Okay, yeah. So you know ball. Sorry. But yeah,
ball knower. But yeah, it's bad. It's bad in Mark Andrews land right now for people who drafted him. He has been horrid. Absolutely terrible.
Had to add that because I know people were curious about it. So we can go back to the waivers. You mentioned Trey Sermon. Like you said, basically got all of the work once Jonathan Taylor exited the game. Only 2% of the snaps actually went to Tyler Goodson. So you're potentially getting a bell cow running back for the Indianapolis Colts. Like, yes, Jonathan Taylor was their best player on offense, but at the same time, I think you could pretty much expect top. Like, the way I view Trey Sermon is basically what my thesis was of Carson Steele.
Yeah.
Where like,
well, like the difference, I guess, is that Carson Steele was going to be more of a long-term play, hopefully, than because Pacheco was expected to be out for a number of weeks as opposed to Jonathan Taylor. Again, I'd be shocked if Jonathan Taylor missed more than 2 games with this injury. But if you're 1-3 and you need running back production, like you should be dropping 30 to 40, 50% of your fab budget on Trey Sermon to stay alive.
For sure. I see Mason's asking here, is AR playing this week? It does sound like he's not.
It sounds like he will be probably likely to play, to be honest, based on what the docs have been saying.
Yeah, I mean, that it would be ideal if we had Flacco, knowing that guy, any mobility he once had in his career is just
he never had mobility.
But like he looks like he's 70 years old in the pocket. Man.
Hey, he could still deal.
He can deal, and I mean, like his arm is not what it once was, but like fucking the guy can deal. That you need anyways sometimes.
Danny, look away.
Yeah, pour one out.
Kareem Hunt led the Chiefs in carries. He led the Chiefs in snaps, barely, over Samaje Perine. And it was his first game with the team since, being on the roster back in like 2019 or 2020 when he was cut for the horrific elevator video or whatever the hell it was, hotel room incident. Kareem Hunt is definitely an interesting name. He is my number 4 waiver add on the week.
See, I would have him a little bit lower, and the reason being, I'm still uncertain with this usage. Am I so confident, like I mentioned to you, in saying Steele's going to be the lead back? No, like straight up, the usage completely declined. What I'm worried about is in weeks where he doesn't fumble in the first series of the game.
Is Hunt the lead back?
Is Hunt the lead back, or is this a 3-man committee is where I'm at with it right now?
Yeah, so if you wanted to rank Hunt over Sermon rest of season, I think that would be fair, but there's absolutely no chance I would rank Hunt over Sermon the next 2 games.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
If JT is out for them. Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it too. Like the other guy, like for example, you have like Downs listed here. Like I probably would go with the long-term of Hunt. It is close between them.
It would depend on what you need position.
If you need running back production, I think Kareem Hunt is a very good intermediate play. It's just, I have some concern because the exact same thing we're saying about Hunt now is what we were saying about Carson Steele. And that changed with 1 fumble. Like if Hunt fumbles and this becomes a 3-man committee, like, would we at all be shocked? I don't trust Andy Reid.
Scored the touchdown to Pete's point here. And Perine will be on the field on 3rd down, long down and distance, and 2-minute drill. So at the very best case scenario, let's say Carson Steele is useless going forward. It's totally Kareem Hunt's backfield on the ground. Kareem Hunt's 59% of the snaps, 55% of the snaps.
Clyde hasn't even played yet either.
Yeah, Clyde hasn't played. I don't want to count Clyde into this backfield because it's like a whole mental health situation going on. I don't know if he's just going to be back right on the field. Is 4 weeks or a month away from football enough to come back from what he's supposedly dealing with? I'm not really going to factor Clyde in at this point in time. Basically, where I'm at with Kareem Hunt is like 15 to 25% of your fab if you needed a running back right away. To me, that's fair. I would not just assume he's going to be the workhorse for Kansas City.
Like I was much more willing to fully invest when Carson Steele came out because there was a thesis it was going to be a 2-man committee and he was going to get all the valuable touches. Now, knowing in hindsight, after that happened, Kareem Hunt gets signed, elevated from the practice squad. Now there's 3 healthy bodies in there. And like we mentioned,
Pacheco will come back at some point too. That's the other thing.
And we can't fully count in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but at the same time, it's an unknown at this point. I feel like it's got to be some type of factor, even if you're not weighing it on.
Dock 5% of the fab that I'd be willing to spend off of Kareem Hunt.
And I think that's the best way to approach it. Again, we're cautious. I think to be honest, this is just going to be what's crazy too is I want to say this is just going to be a pass happy offense, but they literally just fucking lost their wide receiver 1 too. So like, is the Chiefs offense just going to be bad? Like
it might be, and very well could be. It's possible that every week Travis Kelce's 7 for 86 yards, and Xavier Worthy, when he doesn't catch a long touchdown, is probably a bust of a play, and Mahomes is not that good. Like if you're in my position in the Flock League, are you just confidently rolling Patrick Mahomes out there every single week as your starting quarterback?
Fantasy? Knowing that you have Kelce, you kind of
I'd pick up Baker in a good matchup and start him over Mahomes. Like, where are you at with Mahomes?
So right now? Mahomes is tricky. By the way, I saw somebody like victory lapping that they said to fucking bench Mahomes. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you anticipated going into that fucking ranking that he was going to dolphin dive into his fucking wide receiver 1's knee. That bothered me. Like,
I think it's fair to say that Mahomes has been bad to this point.
No, I don't disagree, but somebody was like, guys, I ranked confidently ahead of Mahomes coming into the week. And Mahomes only had 13 points. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you equated into the equation, or you measured into the equation him fucking dolphin diving into his wide receiver 1's knee. Sorry, I had to get that off my fucking chest because what the hell? Like, if he dove into Worthy's knee, yeah, I mean, hopefully Worthy is actually worthy of a wide receiver 1 price tag moving forward because they're going to need him to be.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how Worthy looks in this role. I as the like resident Xavier Worthy stan, I'm kind of not convinced that he'll be any different than he's been, to be honest. I mean, he's a rookie, so he could get better week over week, but yeah, this is as good of a run out as you possibly could have wanted for Xavier Worthy if you drafted him in Dynasty or Best Ball. This is as nutted as it gets.
Yeah. It wasn't even a rando. It was an analyst. I'm just not going to page him.
Facts.
But
Anyways,
I have to say it.
Last waiver ad that I want to talk about, because there's so many dudes. Like I said, this is one of the best waiver slates
Easily.
I've ever seen as far as depth of players that are actually going to help people's fantasy teams and really quality stashes as well. Josh Downs had a really, really strong performance, 22.2 PPR points, 70% of the routes, 39% targets per route run. Again, does this change if Joe Flacco is not going to start? Probably. I don't think I'd be throwing Josh Downs out there, but at the same time, it is the Jacksonville Jags that they're playing this week. I think you could do worse than picking up Josh Downs as just a really good stash, a really good option to have rostered. But then also, if Flacco is playing, like, he's going to be a top 35 receiver for me for sure.
Yeah, and then like looking through here, we mentioned with Hun, if you needed a receiver, I'll just add another name here too. At least for the short term, again, I am more pessimistic than you in the timeline for the Rams receivers because, I mean, it's still Cooper Kupp dealing with a lower body injury. Like, even if it says 1 to 2 weeks, I always work in at least 3 or 4 weeks just to be cautious when it's an older receiver. At least in the short term, it looks like Jordan Whittington is the wide receiver one for the Rams. He got the best usage. And we said in the preseason that if he did get an uptick in snaps like he did this week, he could be a very productive receiver. Again, he was only the wide receiver 30 on the week. But if he's getting that type of usage, that type of target share moving forward, at least in the intermediate until Kupp is not back on the field, and even until Puka's back on the field, because quite frankly, when I'm looking at the situation, who is the most stylistically similar receiver to Kupp and Nacua on the team when one of them is off the field? It's Jordan Whittington. And he showed it in the preseason, looked good. I mean, he had a game against the Cowboys in the preseason where he's basically unguardable. So I'm really happy for him because I said going into the year that I thought he had the opportunity to develop into the wide receiver 3 on the team. And obviously we saw in week 1 that DeMarcus Robinson played like 90+% of the snaps so we're a little pessimistic on that. But yeah, I'm very happy for Whittington. He looks good. He looks like he's going to at least be a mainstay as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 flex option, at least in the intermediate.
Yeah, I mean, hook him. I mean, I've always liked him as a Texas fan. I thought he was
player,
a good player. He's good, tough, chain moving type of wide receiver. He's not flashy, but if there's one offense that you can make that a PPR stud, it is the Rams. That's the reason.
He's not all that different stylistically than Puka.
No, he's not. He's really not. So he's a good option. I have him at 7 on my waiver list. I actually have this guy ahead of him, which is Tyler Algier, who had under no circumstances should be on your waiver wire.
No,
34% roster.
Thank you, Mason.
He and Braylon Allen are the 2 best handcuffs in all of fantasy football. So they need to be rostered at all times because if they go down, they are sell players on your roster to get more fab so you can drop all of your fab on them. Like, that's how good these guys are. Like, I would be, if Tyler Algier or Braylon Allen ever became workhorse backs for the rest of the year, not only would I drop every dime of fab I have on them, I would sell players on my team to get more fab so that I can make sure I get them.
Yeah, I think that's the way you got to approach it.
So have Algier on your roster. There's no reason to roster. Like, I like Trey Tucker, for example. He's my like 13th best ad. Yeah. Do you need to roster Trey Tucker over Tyler Algier? No. Like, Trey Tucker will probably stay on the waiver wire most weeks. And if you needed to add somebody, just throw into your flex spot because you're weak at receiver that week, you could probably do it. So Tyler Algier, I mean, Bucky Irving, if he's available, same kind of situation as well.
I got to ask you one.
Rostered, but
I got to ask you one. So he is rostered in 57% of the leagues, but we'll play the game in more shallow leagues. Maybe people were fed up at his role in the first few weeks because he was drafted, in the first 10 rounds. If Chase Brown is available on your wire, how much fab are you allocating towards him?
Probably like
where would he rank
be a top 4 or 3 ad for me? So anything that you'd be willing to put on Kareem Hunt, I would say you should put on Chase Brown. Yeah, 15 to 25%, give or take.
Like, the question I was going to ask you is like him or Sermon.
I would it would depend on what you need. Sure. If you are a team, I mean, you're in need of a running back in either case, but if you're in need of a running back immediately, I'd rather have Trey Sermon as opposed to Chase Brown, who is, you can get some immediate production out of him, but he's probably more of a long-term play.
Yeah, and I think the viewers just wanted to hear something like that. I completely agree with that analysis. Like, if you need to start week one, what week one this week, like Trey Sermon's probably going to play 80+% of the snaps versus the Colts. Whereas even as good as Chase Brown was this week, he only played 40% of the snaps for Cincinnati. Again, this is a high value touch backfield. We want both pieces of this backfield. Obviously, Moss, I think, is still the one, but Chase showed that he can crack into this workload. I think with Chase Brown, it's still more of an implied play. Yes, you're getting some standalone, but like Tyler Algier, the main thesis is if Moss were to miss any time, if Bijan were to miss any time, you're getting high value running backs in great situations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it's good that we talk through these on the Monday show because it helps me like refine my list and stuff. And like Chase Brown, like you said, he's actually not available in less than 57%. He's 57% rostered. So he's one of those guys that at the beginning of tomorrow's video, you're going to hear me say, like, make sure to check your waiver wire to see if this guy is there because he is probably rostered in most of your leagues. One guy I just want to shout out, I'll just rattle off a couple.
Yep.
Tucker Kraft, if you're in need of a tight end, he was a tight end one in fantasy scoring this week. 86% of the routes he has, anytime he's been healthy, he has alphaed Luke Musgrave. And Jordan Love is back on the field. So for me, with Christian Watson now being out and him being the alpha tight end there, he is absolutely going to be a must-start tight end going forward. And if you have Mark Andrews, if you have Kyle Pitts, if you have some of these guys that aren't performing right now, if you don't want to outright drop them, that's fine. You want to stash them on your bench for another couple of weeks to see what happens. You should start Tucker Kraft over them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the real conversation. I don't know if I'm ready to put him over Pitts rest of the season, but I think that's got to be a conversation. I think that's absolutely got to be a conversation. Kraft,
yeah, you absolutely at least have to start him over Pitts this week.
Absolutely. Like, I think it's a conversation. Again, it's also obviously a bad thing for Pitts, but it's also for me mostly just a great sign for Kraft. I think at this point, is Kraft the top 12 tight end rest of the season?
Yeah, absolutely.
He has to be.
It's got to be.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Like,
again, he's going to be available in a lot of leagues.
For sure, yeah. And again, there's a couple other guys that I think are good stashes. Tank Bigsby kind of fits along the lines of the Braylon Allen, Bucky Irvings of the world, where it's like, I don't personally think that Travis Etienne will lose his job, but if he does go down with an injury, he is a high contingency upside play. Jalen Polk is just like Xavier Legette, only you don't have to pay up for him. So if you don't have a lot of fab available and you need wide receiver help, Jalen Polk ran 87% of the routes this week, and that was a season high. He also commanded a 24% target share. Get ahead of the Jalen Polk breakout. Do not wait for him to have 20 PPR points and cost you 30% of your FAB. If you have a open bench spot because you're rostering some random shitter that is never going to find your roster, like Justice Hill, for example. I think Justice Hill is a fine pickup. Don't get me wrong. But are you ever going to play him if you have good running backs? Probably never. So you might as well pick up Jalen Polk and drop a guy like Justice Hill, or even a guy that's even worse than that. There's people out here rostering like Tyler Johnson still. Like, drop those.
I don't think you should drop Justice Hill after a game he just had like 20 points.
No, probably not. But my point is that if you have a thesis of a play that's like, hey, I could throw this guy up into my lineup in a pinch, you only need like one guy like that on your roster. If you already have, like, for example, in my home league, I have Michael Pittman on my bench. He's been on my bench all year long. Do I need to roster somebody like Trey Tucker? Because not only am I not going to play him over the guys that are currently in my starting lineup, I'm not even going to play him over Michael Pittman, who's my reserve wide receiver. So there's no reason to have guys like that on your team.
You didn't mention him yet, but another guy that really follows that thesis, again, has the height, weight, speed, has the 3-down skill set. And we did see Stevenson fumble again this week, but Antonio Gibson has to be rostered in these leagues. He's only rostered.
He's my number 11 pickup. He's right after Jalen Polk for me. So he is the type of dude that also, if anything happens to Stevenson, I don't think he'll lose his workload outright to Antonio Gibson because Gibson's not the most reliable guy in the world either. It's funny. Butterfingers McGee is the Patriots backfield, but Gibson is at the very least one of the best contingent upside plays at running back who you don't really have to pay up for.
Mason.
Yeah, he's 27% rostered. You can just pick him up. No problem. The other guy that we need to mention, because I already mentioned Trey Tucker, Justice Hill, they're fine. If you need a spot start, sure. I'm not really that interested in those guys. Tutu Atwell as well. Also, if you need a spot start, he's gone over 80 yards in 2 straight games. But the one guy that I think is semi-interesting with the Rashee Rice injury, a guy that played the Rashee Rice role just 2 years ago and finishes a top 30 fantasy wide receiver.
Hey, wait, real quick.
I know it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Guys, plug your noses. I'm warning you right now. Plug your freaking noses, because you when you hear this, you're gonna just smell stench coming out of your monitors.
It's got to be Juju Smith-Schuster. He has to be a guy that you consider rostering because he's been running more routes the last 2 games. With Rashee Rice out of the lineup, the guy who's going to be the over the middle slot receiver PPR scam for this Kansas City Chiefs offense. It could be Justin Watson. He's been running a decent amount of routes as well. but it's probably Juju, given the role that Rashee Rice vacates.
For sure. By the way, I want to address this. Yeah, I think that's the way we got to approach it. Also, shout out Mason. He gives me a lot of flowers when I do make correct takes. And I mean, we just may as well add this one to both of us that while everybody was drafting Luke Musgrave round 14, round 15 in BBM, we were stealing Tucker Kraft in the last fucking round. So, yeah,
yeah. And to like, again, is it gross? Yes, totally. Juju, like, he sent more dick pics than scoring touchdowns the last 2 years, bro. Like, the guy's not good anymore. But like, he wasn't good 2 years ago either. And Mahomes made him good as a PPR guy. So it's possible that he's functional. And I would rather be on the right side of history with Juju being like, hey, what if he's the #1 waiver ad next week because he has like 7 targets, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns?
The
like,
only issue I have
now and use him as a sell high candidate.
The only issue I have is he capable of commanding 7 targets at this point.
I mean, he looks better now than he looked with the Patriots at the very least.
I mean, he's got 17 yards on the season. Like, I don't disagree with the thesis that if he is in the Rice role, that's going to be valuable. Because, I mean, we said going into the NFL draft, we didn't think Rice was a good separator. In fact, he graded what, 0th percentile against man, according to Matt Harmon's reception perception?
I think he was 1st percentile.
Yeah, like that's the point. Like, it's not like you need to be able to separate at a high degree to play that role in the Chiefs. Let's just say that.
And not in this offense, the way it's designed with the way that Mahomes see, like zone coverage, like, you know, the Madden ability that makes you see what the coverage is and like know exactly where to throw the ball. Like, that's what Mahomes is in real life. Like, if you can get open versus zone coverage, like,
I think Kelsey's back in the tight end one.
I agree, dude. Kelsey was my tight end 1 rest of season the whole time. I never moved him. And
I mean, I moved him for Bowers and McBride when McBride was showing up, but obviously McBride has concussion. I think with McBride being out now with the concussion, he's in that tier at the very minimum, like Kelsey is.
He is, yeah. And to me, Kelsey like represents a guy that you have to just like accept your PPR scam tight end premium points. Like, even if he's not the same player anymore, he hasn't scored a touchdown this year, and he's been a guy that's still commanding targets. So even if he's washed, he's still a top 5 tight end at the very least, top 3 potentially.
We have to address this because he's the meme of the Flock League. But how ironic would it be if Amari ended up on the Chiefs? And it's funny because, again, pour one out to Mason right now.
Because the Hollywood Brown
he tried to trade for a Chiefs receiver to improve the offense of the receiver on his team. And if Amari just ended up on the Chiefs to replace Hollywood, it would be fucking.
I need to pour one out for myself, trading away Amari Cooper, JSN, and Bucky Irving for Brandon Ayuk. Maybe I'm stupid as hell. I still believe in Brandon Ayuk.
If the Raiders trade in division, by the way, they are cooked.
They're trolling if they trade Devontae Adams to the Chiefs. There's no way they're stupid enough to do that. That's the biggest rival they have in the NFL. There's no way they would trade Devontae Adams there.
I mean, the Raiders fucking hate the Chiefs. Like, they honest to God, like, what makes me optimistic as a Cowboys fan is the Cowboys and Raiders have a really good trade relation. So maybe we get on the fucking Adams sweepstakes because, God, we need receiver help too.
I don't think so, Mason, by the way. I think I would still have won that trade. If I don't have Amari anymore, but like just at face value of the trade happening, I think Hollywood Brown would be like, fine, given the status of this Chiefs offense. They're not good right now. Like Amari is probably more valuable.
No, Amari for sure is valuable.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you guys for sticking around. We've been going on for a while. We will answer your supers because we did get a number of those. Appreciate you guys for leaving those. A reminder, Danny, are you still going to go live tonight? Just for reference? I don't know. We didn't talk about
I'll go live for like an hour. I mean, you're handling waivers tomorrow, so it's not like I got to work on that sheet. So yeah, sure. I'll go live for like an hour.
My dad's birthday is today, and I'm doing like a whole thing for that. So I'm not actually going to be on the live for tonight. But Danny will be. And a reminder too, that we are no longer, after this stream is over, going to be doing super chats.
Yes.
All questions
from I mean, we were both addressing it at the same time. I'll let you address it. Let's go.
Yeah, all questions will be funneled through the site flockfantasy.com. You can see the link down below in the description of this video. We are turning off super chats going forward. Because if you want to skip the line, you will be able to do that via Flock Fantasy there.
So the way you would do that, as you guys can see, you have 3 options here: team review, trade question, or start sit question. So let's just say, hey, I want to start sit question. I'll be clicking that. You can automatically link your league here. You'll be able to do that. It'll automatically fill out the scoring settings in your league. You continue that, submit your lineup in there. Obviously, again, it's not going to continue now because I haven't filled it out, but let's just say I did that. Continue there, and you're able to submit your question through here. So whatever decision you have, feel free to fill that out. And yeah, it's very simple. Once you get used to it, again, it's going to take a little bit of adjusting to get used to the site, but at the same time, you're going to see too, it's so much easier than having to type every single thing out in a super chat.
Yeah, no, it is. It's much easier for us, and we appreciate it more because it goes directly to us as opposed to paying the YouTube overlords all of their cuts that they take from it.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate if you guys, once we get this onboarded and make this transition, obviously it'll be working out a lot better. And the other thing that's better about it too is that you guys can submit these questions on your own time.
Yeah.
You can just like, hey, it's Wednesday afternoon and you have your start set question. You don't have to wait for us to go live Thursday before the game. You can submit that ahead of time and then join us live for the stream and we'll answer the question for you. And two, the feature that we have on the site is that once we answer the question on the live stream, once we hit the next question button, it automatically rips the timestamp from the stream and sends it to you guys on the site. So if you miss the stream, for example, let's say the stream starts at 7:10 and we answered your question at 7:15, you can basically just get that question. Let's say 10 minutes before kickoff is when you check the site. You'll see that we answered your question during the stream. You don't have to scroll around and look for it.
Yeah, a general rule of thumb for start sits and for trade questions, they will be addressed on stream. Obviously, the team reviews we're going to be doing on our own time. A little bit different with the team reviews. Basically, once we record them, we upload them unlisted on YouTube. We'll send you that link directly. And again, in those team reviews, you can submit
it's Dynasty Decisions episode that we can see everything about your league.
You can also do it with your redraft teams, though. You can also
you can do it with your redraft teams as well. And then Mason's given the benefits here. You can submit questions at any time of the day. They're sent directly to us. We obviously receive a larger portion of it as opposed to YouTube taking a big cut. And two, the creators can actually see the league dynamics.
We have all the context we need.
We can see everything that we need to see. On a team review, we can see all the other teams in your league, but on a start sit question, a trade question, we have all the context that we need to make that decision. And the trade, you can use the trade calculator and the trade finder tools for free on our site too, if you guys have never checked it out.
And I think that is the biggest key is when you are signed up on the site and you submit your team, if you're linked your team directly, again, it goes ESPN, Yahoo, I believe, and Sleeper, right? Those are the three.
I believe those are the three platforms. Mason, you can correct us if we're missing one.
Correct us if we're wrong. But basically, when you're linking that team directly, instead of having to type out, this is a super flex, start 7, blah, blah, blah. Instead of having to type that all out, we can just fucking see it. Like it'll automatically show up for us.
Yeah, it's way faster for us to get through the questions. It's a way better experience. Anyways, that's enough plugging here. We still in the Carson Steele train, Danny.
It's hard to be. No, I'll be honest. The thesis of Carson Steele was the workload we saw last week. 64% of the snaps, 60% of the overall opportunities in the backfield, 19 opportunities overall last week. The thesis wasn't, he'll fumble and just get fucking benched. So
I think my thesis was that he stinks. Ergo, his role was not safe. That was probably the accurate thesis, in my opinion.
I mean, that's easy to say in hindsight, but
it is. But
he looked good. He looked good in the week he got.
The whole time.
Dude, I mean, that was so hard to say. He got signed off the practice squad. He wasn't brought in the offseason. And Carson Steele looked good in that first game. So if he's going to get benched after a fumble,
you say he looked good. I don't think he looked good.
I mean, he looked fine. He had over 4 yards per touch. He was running hard. He did what they needed him to do.
I never thought he was good. Anyways.
All right, sure. I mean, that's difference of opinion. Whatever.
Up 19 with Tyreek left facing Gibbs and Achane tonight, full PPR. What are my chances?
Can we cancel Tyreek with one of these running backs? Like Achane, maybe?
Yeah. I think that's your hope here.
It's like a 50-50, I would say, no?
I would say you're probably favored to win this. 19's a lot.
For Gibbs, though, in a full PPR?
I would say this is
45% or 45 to
55. This, I would say.
I was going to say 55-45 is about where I'd be.
Yeah.
Fields, Kirk, Evans for JD in London. I also own A-Rich. So, I mean, okay, let me process this. So, London more or less equals Evans rest of the season.
I would rather have Evans slightly, but yeah, probably give or take.
And then it's Christian Kirk plus Fields for Jayden Daniels. If you have A-Rich, are you just holding A-Rich?
JD London side, I think.
Even if you have A-Rich?
A-Rich is like roster clutter at this point right now.
No, I know. But I'm saying at least it's a quarterback that if he does get healthy has that. Dude, before he got hurt in that game, he was 3.
Yeah, he looked good in that game. I don't know.
It's
tough. I'm not sold that you're going to love starting Anthony Richardson every week.
I don't disagree, but also are you incentivized to go trade for a quarterback if you have Anthony Richardson? Or are you more incentivized? Really, eh?
Yeah, I have Anthony Richardson in my home league right now, and you better believe I'm sending out offers for like Hurts and Stroud and guys that have been down performers lately. I'm definitely sending offers to get them if having
Like,
a rostered A-Rich on my team.
But then you're also trading like pretty big package to roster 2 quarterbacks.
No, I'll probably include Richardson in the deal.
Okay.
Like, because I know for a fact the guy who has Hurts in my league also likes Richardson. So I could probably use Richardson plus to get to Hurts.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I
And
mean,
same goes for like guys who have Burrow and guys who have Prescott and guys who you just want to try and get up to a better quarterback or more reliable quarterback. I think you can use Richardson to do that.
yeah, I think
Assuming he's healthy. Like, wait till the
think
news comes out that he's going to be starting still, because you're not going to get anything for him right now because people think he's hurt.
I
But
think it's the Daniels side, but yeah. I think it's the Daniels side, but also it's tough because you're going to be rostering 2 quarterbacks.
For what it's worth, though, Jayden Daniels is easily a must start every week starter quarterback. The way he's running and the way he's throwing the ball, he starts every single game for everybody's lineup. And Drake London, to me, is still kind of like scratching the surface to what he could be for the rest of the season. I still slightly prefer Mike Evans, but it wouldn't shock me if like 3 weeks from now we're ranking Drake London as like a weekly top 12 play because Kirk Cousins is playing a lot better and Kyle Pitts is still being Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Bush trying to slut me out and no flock and just saying, dude, he's offering me like, it's a fine deal. It's better than the one that you sent me at first. At first, he wanted 2 2s for Chuba Hubbard and Andy Dalton, and I called him out in the chat. I was like, that's a terrible deal. He sent me a trade yesterday that was Jalen Wright and a third for Chuba Hubbard and Andy Dalton, which I think is not a terrible offer. The only problem with it,
right? You're a contender.
I have Jonathan Brooks, so that's why I don't want to do it.
Okay, you're getting Chuba now.
Yeah, but Chuba is relevant for how many more weeks?
Okay. And you're also getting a starting quarterback for the rest of the season. What am I missing here?
I mean, he's not a starting quarterback.
Jalen Wright in the third?
I'm keeping Jalen Wright in the third there. I think it's a good deal, though. I think it's a good, fair offer. I just don't want to do it.
I agree with AJ here. I think you're borderline insane for not accepting this as a contender.
I don't know. Chase Brown and Rico Dowdle are my 0 RB guys that I'm starting in a team that I don't have to be competitive this year if I don't want to be.
I thought you had running backs on that team.
Much of an upgrade over those guys. I also have Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb, who are coming off of IR soon.
Isn't that the team that's stacked?
Yeah, it is. And I have Rico Dowdle, Chase Brown, Jonathan Brooks, and Nick Chubb. To me, if I'm going to trade for a running back, I'm either getting somebody really cheap or I'm buying somebody good.
But like also, Chuba Hubbard gives you insurance for Jonathan Brooks, knowing that he's probably not going to be back at least.
I like Jalen Wright. I don't want to trade him.
I mean, it's your call. It's your call. I think that's a more than fair offer.
I think it's a fair offer. I never said it wasn't fair.
I keep wanting to fucking vomit seeing that trade you did with Tano for Nico Collins. Holy fucking Christ.
What?
Nico Collins in a first for Tony Pollard. I keep seeing him.
That was a crazy trade that I pulled off last year.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. Coming for you, Danny. Yeah, we went through that. I appreciate you, DeMason. No flock and tank keeps getting better for me.
Yeah, I mean, like in that league, AJ has like 5 ones or something.
But by the way, AJ, when I say that I'm willing to sell a quarterback, doesn't mean I'm completely tanking my team. I'm not a dumbass. I know I traded my first round pick to you. I'm not gonna make that pick a top 3 pick. Let's get that straight. So like he's like, oh, I hope Danny tanks. You know, I have his first. I'm not your idiot league mate that's just gonna fucking say, oh yeah, it's time to tank when I don't have my pick. Like, I'm still gonna try to fucking compete this year. I think I'm a mid-tier contender. I'm probably like a tier 2, tier 3 team.
Yeah. What would you do if you were in my position? Having a very
go win the championship.
Team. No, but like, so let me ask you this. What would you do if you're in my position? Because I don't think, as my team is currently constructed, I would win the championship this year unless I bought a running back production piece, or I have Rico Dowdle, Chase Brown, a couple guys that are like upside swings. I also have Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb. Would you just ride out those other guys and wait till Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb come back? Because that's my plan, to be honest. If I can get a good deal on, name X running back who's a buy low right now, like Josh Jacobs or something like that,
who's your QB3?
Then I would be open to it, but I'm not necessarily in a rush to do that because my team is extremely young across the board.
Bush, explain this to me. So you don't have a QB3 on this team, and you're not taking the Dolphin deal from AJ?
No.
I think you're faded for that.
No. I think
Andy Dalton's probably worth a 2 just for the starting quarterback equity alone.
I don't think he's going to start the whole year.
Who's going to start over him?
I think at some point Bryce is going to get back in.
Come on, man. The Bryce Young thing is over. You don't bench your first round pick or first overall pick and then put him back in later in the year, dude.
To be honest, I don't need to trade for a QB3 because I have CJ Stroud and Josh Allen who are never hitting my bench ever.
I mean, bye week injury. Like, look at my fucking team. I lost McCaffrey and Nakua.
It's not Saint Brown. It's not Saint Brown. It's Chuba. The deal is. Oh, actually, this is not.
It's
for
probably
me,
a trade
I
in the
think.
chat.
This is probably a trade in the chat. Anyways, the trade that AJ offered me is Chuba Hubbard and Andy Dalton for Jalen Wright and a 3rd round pick. Now, again, at face value, it feels like I'm fleecing him, but knowing I have Jonathan Brooks, who's going to be
knowing you have Jonathan Brooks, you're getting Chuba Hubbard.
Why am I trading for an insurance guy?
Do you have the RB depth right now?
No.
So why wouldn't you insulate the one guy that you actually have?
Because I like Jalen Wright long term, and I'm an absolutely.
I don't disagree, but also it's probably a fair swap between the 2 running backs, and then you're getting Andy Dalton, who's going to start the rest of the year for a 3rd. I think
my whole team is like under 23 years old. There's no reason I have to win this year.
I'm glad you're not taking it because I am competing against you, but also I think you're crazy for not taking it.
To me, I look at it this way. I would much rather just spend high-end picks to go after Breece Hall than I would buy somebody who's like mid and like, because I can just use Chase Brown and Rico Dowdle for the time being. Once Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb are on the field, I'll just use those guys.
Sure. I mean, do you? I would do that deal for the record, but we will go back to the other supers because we haven't gone through all of them. Trade Bijan, Jefferson, and Najee, or Bijan for 18. Wait. What's the question?
I think this is just he has trade offers on the table right now. I need a wide receiver bad and have Gibbs as the other back. I think
Bijan, Jefferson, and Najee, or Bijan for 18. What's the first deal?
Bijan for Jefferson and Najee, I think is what he's saying.
Why would that be a fucking deal? That's easily the Jefferson side.
Yeah, it's Jefferson and Najee if that's the case.
Yeah, if you need a wide, okay.
I wouldn't do that. Would you do that for Etienne and Wilson? Just like pretend the Jefferson and Najee deal wasn't available because the Jefferson and Najee deal is better. But would you do that for Garrett Wilson and Etienne if you were offered that?
Yeah,
I don't think I would.
Dude, Bijan's not enough of a difference maker right now to really warrant.
I think he still will be, to be honest. I'm not as worried.
I mean, I think the thesis for him is similar to the thesis for Garrett Wilson the rest of the season.
I think it is, but how many running backs are you ranking over Bijan reasonably?
He needs a wide receiver.
Yeah, that's fair. But like just general question then. How many rest of season running backs are over Bijan rest of season?
Well,
to me, I think it's 3. I think the answer is 3.
Who are the other 2? It's
Breece
Saquon
Hall,
for sure. Saquon for sure is one.
Saquon and Devon Achane. I think I would rather have Achane than Bijan rest of the season.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree, but also Wilson's probably still a back end wide receiver 1, and even though I'm low on ETN, he's a mid range RB2.
Yeah,
you need wide receiver bad.
Do you want to move a potential needle moving asset?
The VORP would favor Bijan, but if you need a wide receiver bad, I don't see how you can disperse Bijan to a better package than that right now. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, for the record, if you're getting offered,
the Jefferson Najee deal is better.
I don't think that's the actual trade though. Like it's just Bijan, Jefferson, and Najee. He doesn't list a trade here. If you're getting Jefferson and Najee, you're absolutely fucking dude. Bijan Jefferson is worth Bijan plus a big asset. Let's get that straight.
He is. That's why I'm like looking at this and I'm like, how else would this trade be worth? Like, would it be broken down?
Yeah, like I'm trying to figure it
Bijan,
out.
Jefferson, and Najee for what? Like that's one side of the trade. You know what I mean? Like, but it's Bijan for Jefferson and Najee. It's gotta be. I'd be giving Bijan to get Jefferson and Najee. Yeah, that's what he says right here. So yeah,
dude,
take Jefferson and Najee and run.
Absolutely, Brandon. Go take. Why is Bijan worth Jefferson plus in your league, dude? Even if it was a keeper league, I would rather have Jefferson as a keeper.
I would. So AJ, I will trade you for Dalton, but I'm not giving you a 2nd round pick for him. So if you want to do a third, if you want to do a third,
AJ,
I will gladly do this.
AJ, I know you love the deal. Don't let him fucking fleece you. Dalton is worth a late 2 right now.
I'm not in any rush. So why do I?
Then don't trade with him.
Trade a third.
Trade with anybody else. AJ
never hit my lineup.
AJ, trade with anybody else then, because
I will make
if you're getting a third for him, you are insane. AJ, look at me in the mirror. You're not going to let him fucking take you to the woodshed because Andy Dalton's starting for the next 12 plus games.
He's never starting in my lineup.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Josh Allen for him. Why would he not wait for a team to suffer a quarterback injury and then sell him for a 2 then? Because if you're thinking that Andy Dalton's not getting a 2 at some point,
you're right. Then I could pay a 2nd for him, but I'm not paying a 2nd for him.
AJ, hold. I know you want the points off. Hold. You have fucking 7 first-round picks. Who cares if your own pick is 3 versus 5? Who cares? Hold.
Yeah,
you have 7 firsts.
Yeah,
brother.
Love listening to you boys. Look forward. I can't believe you love listening to us at this state of the stream, but look forward to the vids each week. Shout out Danny and Nico Goat. Yes, sir. What's the plan for guys like Godwin and Dobbins rest of season? I mean, Godwin's been, he's got to be a mid wide receiver too rest of season. Dobbins definitely a mid to low end RB2 rest of season. They're both definitely holds for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, we mentioned Dobbins this week. If he does underperform against the Steelers, but still gets a big workload, or Steelers,
which exactly what happened.
Still gets a big workload. Buy low, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, week. We're going to be doing wide receiver and running back trade targets. J.K. Dobbins going to be on that
again.
Fuck, he'll be an honorable mention on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Anyways, we've been on here for 2 hours. I'm getting delirious. I'm absolutely starving. But if you guys did enjoy the stream, leave a like. Again, rest of the week schedule. Full waiver video will be tomorrow. Follow me over on TikTok. Danny will be doing shorts as well. We both have Monday Night Football TikToks or Pick'em shorts, whatever we want to call them. I have a TikTok over. If you guys want to tail this one, I got Tyreek higher than 54.5 rushing plus receiving yards, simply too low for a player that good. Tony Pollard higher than 12.5 rushing attempts. I think that'll be a close game. I think Pollard will get his carries in that. David Montgomery higher than 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns. This might be gone, to be honest. I took this morning, and I don't think it's there anymore.
I think mine might have gone up as well because I think the pick'ems are starting to factor in that the Seahawks defensive line, they're without all 4 starters. I mentioned on the live stream yesterday morning, I think it was all 4 of their starters, their edges and their defensive tackles are out for this game. So David Montgomery, if you could, like, he's currently listed now. I'll show my pick. So he's only at 62.5 rushing yards. I'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But either way, go take.
And then higher than receptions for Jackson Smith and Jigba. They've been like blowing 2 teams out when the games have been like JSN only gets like 3 targets or whatever. The one game that they were losing, which they're 4.5 point underdogs to the Detroit Lions in this game, JSN had 16 targets in that game. So I think there's a very good chance he hits this total pretty easily. They also have this free pick tonight with the Tyreek Hill for new customers only. So if you are a new customer, use code FSE as always. Deposit $10. You'll get our weekly start sit rankings all season long, and you'll also get this free square Tyreek pick that you can go with as well.
Yep, and shout out the Vulture Protection. I think it was actually from your slip with the Rashad White, was able to apply the Jared Goff free pick here, so appreciate that. The other ones that we got listed here, Kenneth Walker lower than 71.5 yards from scrimmage. Pretty simple. We've mentioned the Lions are the best team on the running back matchup chart at limiting opposing running back production. They are a very pass funnel defense, and Kenneth Walker's coming off an oblique injury. Pretty self-explanatory in terms of why I like that side there on the lower. Dave Montgomery higher than 63.5 rushing yards. It's actually gone down to 62.5. That must be in terms of where the money's coming in, because like either way, when I'm looking at the game script, the Seahawks are without their 4 starting defensive linemen. It is an isolated island game. Dan Campbell wants to establish the run. Their best advantage on the field on offense is their offensive line versus the entirety of the Seahawks backup defensive group. Because when we're also looking at that, the Seahawks are already a run funnel defense. Their pass coverage is phenomenal. Witherspoon, Woolen, phenomenal. You don't think Dan Campbell's going to know, okay, well, if they're good on the back end and they're depleted up front, we're just going to smash the football with our hammer that is David Montgomery. 62.5. It was at 63.5 when I placed it. Love that in terms of the value we got there. And then the final one we have listed here, DK Metcalf higher than 7.5 first quarter receiving yards. Goes back to the thesis. If I think Kenneth Walker's in a tough matchup, if I think that they are a pass funnel defense, we need 1 target for DK Metcalf to catch 8 yards, pretty much.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's all these picks are pretty self-explanatory. The Lions are 4.5 point favorites. I do think they'll be able to control this game. So that's why I like kind of playing that thesis of it. And the Titans and Dolphins game, I do think that Tyler Huntley is going to make that offense better. So I like the Waddle and Tyreek like hires and the Achane hires and things of that nature too. So again, appreciate you guys for sticking around.
A couple more supers.
We do actually have a couple more supers. Thoughts on Pittman? I think he's probably a good sell high candidate, especially if Richardson's coming back. But I do like seeing him actually perform on the field as somebody who has Pittman in my home league.
Like, I'm trying to think of underperforming receivers this week. Like, can you sell him for
Garrett Wilson?
If George Pickens had a bad week, that would have been my name for him. But
Garrett Wilson and Brandon Ayuk are the 2 guys.
Up to those guys.
Hugest buy lows in all of fantasy right now. Again, I'm still wavering confidence-wise on if they'll actually be great this year, but they should be better than they've been. And Pittman is a guy that maybe gets you to those guys if you have other pieces to throw into that deal. Rice, Deontay for JSN, B-Rob, Jalen Wright, house money. So it's a dynasty trade here. I think
JSN
I
or
want
Rice in a
JSN,
dynasty?
B-Rob, and Jalen Wright side here. As much as I like Rice as kind of a good buy low candidate, house money, I'm assuming you mean you're trading these guys away for JSN, B-Rob, and Jalen Wright?
JSN or Rice in dynasty?
I'd rather have Rice slightly, but I think the B-Rob versus Deontay, I'd rather have B-Rob, and then Jalen Wright's a nice throw-in.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's what we need to be talking about in terms of Rice's valuation is around the JSN range. Like I think Mason said wide receiver 24 in dynasty. I think about the wide receiver 24, 25 range is probably appropriate.
Yeah, that's fair. I literally love Danny being on my side for
Gotcha,
sure.
buddy.
Anyways, we're going to head off of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, if you want to submit questions to our future live streams, the new way we're going to turn super chats off going forward is going to be using the site. I pinned it in the chat. You submit a question. You can do start sit questions. You can do trade questions. We will be having the ability to just submit a general question going forward. If you guys just have, regular old questions that don't involve start sits or trades. And then of course, team reviews are available over there as well. Of course, you also get discounts. We didn't actually mention this. You get discounts on trade questions and start sit questions if you are a site subscriber using our promo code. I believe the discount is 30% off all of those a la carte things. So it also pays to be a site subscriber because you get our rest of season rankings, our dynasty rankings, our trade value charts, everything that we do over there. Our weekly rankings is available on flockfantasy.com. And of course, promo code FSE gets you 30%. You do not
address this quick. Yeah, you do not need a subscription to ask questions on the site. However, if you do fill out a team review, it's actually more beneficial for you to sign up long-term on Flock because you will get all of the perks of the subscription package plus a free team review on that. So if you're already planning on buying a team review, by getting the subscription over on the site, it's actually more beneficial for you from a cost standpoint.
Yeah, and like I said, if you are a site subscriber, it's cheaper to get a team review. It's cheaper to get start sit questions. It's cheaper to get trade questions because you're and specifically if you're a site subscriber of ours too. You actually get a minor discount if you are a site subscriber of Flock or a site subscriber of Domain on trade questions to us. But if you support us, obviously you'll get a discount on that. So chasing breakers, this will be the last question we answer. Please do not submit another super chat going forward. Puka for JJ. Late 2025 first, and how the hell are you getting JJ plus for Puka Nacua?
Two options for nabbing JJ in a half PPR. Puka for JJ. Wait, what? Oh, JJ McCarthy. Oh my God, I'm so
I thought this was Justin Jefferson also.
Okay, Puka for dude. If I can get JJ in a first for Puka Nacua, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I also like the other deal too, though. Herbert for JJ 2 seconds and Zach Moss. I'd rather have JJ 2 seconds and Zach Moss there too.
I'd prefer the first deal though.
Just
the first alone.
Call me crazy. I actually think I like the Herbert deal better.
So where do you have Puka versus Herbert in your dynasty rankings?
I'm gonna have I got to probably make an update if they're not currently ahead right now, but I would rather have Puka than Justin Herbert. With Justin Herbert is useless from a fantasy perspective. He's obviously still a good quarterback, but.
See, I want a little bit more insulation on the site. Can you get JJ in a first? Because he's offering 2 seconds in Moss, which is about equivalent for what I would expect a first to go. Can you get JJ in a first?
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure if you can.
That's what I would counter back here. Chasing again, appreciate the super. Q Hussein also leaves a comment here. Question, no question. Just wanted to be the last super ever. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. Yeah, Q Hussein, you are the last super ever. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we still will have like the super comments on for like on regular pre-recorded videos, but yeah, during live streams we're going to turn them off. So appreciate you guys for all the supers. If you've ever left us a super in the past, like definitely appreciate it. It's just a new transition that we're making. Again, it is more beneficial to us. I think it's more beneficial to you guys as well. So make sure if you guys are interested, check out the site, check out all that good stuff, like, comment, subscribe. I need to eat something before anybody else has a super chat right now. So appreciate you guys for joining us.